Hello? Is it working? I'm guessing it's working. I don't know if this is working. I'm gonna assume it is because I think I see everything. Oh, we're gonna hide that. What did I just hide? Hide that. Um, I apologize, guys. There it is. There it is. There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. Um, so we're on YouTube now. This is big. Um, this is my first stream on YouTube, so if anything is like not right, let me know. Um, I'm I'm learning with you guys. I've never streamed on YouTube before. Um, but I'm so excited. This is our first React stream. I've never I've done React streams, but like not really. You know, I kind of got distracted or something and then didn't end up posting it, didn't end up doing anything with it or doing any more. And then I never really had a whole lot of actual stuff to react to. So I have taken the time over the last like month, month and a half ish to just make a playlist of shit. Things that I want to react to, interesting things. I wanted this to be a recurring series. Maybe down the line we'll start to get him edited and put out and stuff. But for now, we're just gonna stick to just lives. So if anyone like has things they want to say, obviously there's chat. You know, if there's a video that you want to see me react to, I would love to react to things. All you gotta do is just either put it in chat. I know in the description there's the Discord for me and my buddy's community. I'm a lot more active at the moment than he is, but he's wanting to get back into it. But yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited. So yeah, right now I have a um I have a playlist of 16 videos to react to. And we're gonna go through them. Yeah, we're gonna go through them. So welcome in chat, anyone who's here. If you're coming in and you're just kind of passing by all means, do that. I'm just here to have a good time. All right. I don't know if you guys can hear that okay. I forgot to set this up. All right, can you guys hear this?
Despite being an industry worth hundreds.
Is that? I hope you guys can hear that. No, I don't want to delete that. Fuck off. All right. So the first video of today's stream. The first video. All right. Let's see if this works. Oop, nope. Oh my God. All right. Hopefully this works. I'm going to put myself over here. All right. Here we go. First reaction. How lore kills games. Now, I know this is a hot topic. Not necessarily right now, but among the community, this is a really big hot topic at the moment. Centered around overabundance of lore. I feel like a lot right now, in my opinion, I feel like right now lore is at an all-time, not high, but it's overstressed. I feel like a lot of games right now, indie games, smaller studio games that want this big Five Nights at Freddy's, I mean, it says it right there. The idea that you need lore is not necessary. You do not need lore in games. You can just have a game and then build it in later, but I mean, Poppy Playtime, let's not even get started on that. Poppy Playtime is the definition of doing it wrong, and I would be surprised if this video doesn't get into that. But anyway, let's get started.
Hundreds of billions at the height of cultural. Despite being an industry worth hundreds of billions at the height of cultural relevancy, ask a fan of video games their thoughts on gaming and they'll talk of constant decline. It seems every day a new manifesto drops about why exactly games are dying, sometimes valid, sometimes conspiratorial and kind of weird. In large part, this frustration can quite easily be attributed to increased commercialization, sucking a lot.
Yeah, I definitely think that there is something to be said about different parts of, like, different subsections of communities. I do think that there are some that are a genuine issue, but at the end of the day, it does do a lot for that game as is. It does make it more it gives it more notoriety. It puts it on the map of a lot more places and different outlets. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like
Dying, sometimes valid.
I guess what I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to like besmirch anyone that's in different subcultures of games, but you look at Overwatch. Overwatch got big because of the not safe for work side of things. Not saying that's the only reason. It's a great game, but do we really think that Overwatch would have been as big as it was if that side wasn't a thing? Yeah. Maybe not as quick, because that gave it exposure to other things. That's what's important. And some places just want exposure.
It's sometimes conspiratorial and kind of weird. In large part, this frustration can quite easily be attributed to increased commercialization, sucking a lot of fun and whimsy out of the medium. Take open world games, for instance. What once was a novelty that evoked a hitherto unknown sense of scale and bombast has become an industry standard synonymous with big, empty wastes of time. They took the coolest thing ever and made it suck. Not always, but as I hope to prove through this video, nothing's terrible in a vacuum. It's lazy implementation and half-baked integration that leaves the game feeling sloppy.
And that's what I'm trying to say. It's not the presence of lore that I have an issue with. It's the laziness in putting it in. Or it's how the fans will figure it out. They'll fill in the gaps. Okay, but if you have the whole story, okay, I need to say this. If you have the whole story of your game all planned out, don't assume that players, regular ass people, are gonna know what it is. You know, you have to find, essentially, I feel like you need to have a case study to see, all right, how much of this shit can people actually figure out? Because these game companies are leaving blanks in the story so big that now you have franchises like Five Nights at Freddy's where no one knows what's going on, but that's what keeps it going. And I get that that's what keeps the money coming in, but let us get an answer, man.
The simple fact of the matter is that in a world where just developing a video game can be a multi-million-dollar, multi-year spanning endeavor, it simply isn't enough to just sell well. Something needs franchise potential and a competitive spot in an ever-shifting attention economy. You can sell thousands of copies, but if you can't move merchandise and get an invested fandom doing 24/7 free advertising, then you may not have the motion to get your next project over the finish line. Most games don't even get the momentum to break even, let alone keep devs and artists around long term, with over 50% of all games published on Steam making less than $1,000, and a whopping 83% of...
I mean, I feel like you can't judge much based on that. Based on this, I feel like you can't really judge it that much. Mainly just because there's so many games that are put up on Steam. I think there's like 50, I think it was 50,000 per day. How many games are published on Steam each day? Oh, I don't know where the hell I got. Maybe my scale was off, but it's 40 to 50 games a day, which comes out to about 20,000 every year. That is a ton of games. And you got to think half of them there are some games that people just put out as like a college project, which is fine. I have respect for that. But I feel like revenue sometimes isn't the best scale of things, in my opinion. I feel like it's not the best scale.
Dollars, and a whopping 83% of mobile games completely fail, let alone keep devs and artists around long term, with over 50% of all games published on Steam making less than $1,000, and a whopping 83% of mobile games completely failing within 3 years. This is despite mobile being one of the most lucrative platforms in general. Even when only looking at games priced $10 and above, which filters out a lot of hobbyist projects without publisher backing, the median revenue for a Steam game is $17,000, which isn't a lot when you consider just how long a process game development is. This shift in focus to maximize both transmedia profit of the IP and maximizing payouts from individual customers has led to some of the industry's most insidious practices, such as predatory microtransactions and game design optimized to maximize addiction and artificially extend runtimes rather than deliver a fun experience.
And that's what I'm saying. With mobile games, it's so much about just simply making money. That shouldn't be how it is.
Sometimes it really does feel like a
mobile gaming, I believe, will at the end of the day be the death of gaming. If not that there will be a death, but it's not the best side of gaming, and a lot of people need to understand that it's not great. It's lazy half the time, in my opinion. Outside of the big companies that make mobile games, I mean, no one's gonna be sitting, man, I can't wait to go home and play Block Blast.
Race to the bottom between AAA execs.
And that's a whole nother rabbit hole that I do want to go down someday that I learned about recently.
Greediness and the desperate vying for attention indie devs have to subject themselves to. The message to aspiring creatives is clear. Learn how to pump out engagement slop or put on the McDonald's cap. One way in which games, particularly indie horror games, which is a space I operate within, carve out a niche in the transmedia attention economy is through what I'll be referring to as theory bait. This basically just applies to any kind of vaguely defined wider lore that hardly factors into the story and exists purely to facilitate an endless slew of content mill slop by channels like this one you're watching right now. That's right.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Games, particularly indie horror games, which is a space I operate within, carve out a niche in the transmedia attention economy is through what I'll be referring to as theory bait. This basically just applies to any kind of vaguely defined wider lore that hardly factors into the story and exists purely to facilitate an endless slew of content mill slop by channels like this one you're watching right now. That's right, baby, I'm not above it. Without mindless slop, myself and quite literally everyone who does what I do will be out of a job. Whilst, again, this writing process is not always strictly bad, it's when you create a culture of writing questions without answers that you establish a negative industry standard and universally lower the bar.
Yeah, it does lower the bar. It really does. Especially when you see big companies put it out or something. Not saying that Hello Neighbor, Five Nights at Freddy's, like, yeah, they're AAA games, but they're not big companies. I feel like Steel Wool is big. It's not huge. It's not like Bethesda, you know, it's not massive. But going with that, I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's is not something that you can necessarily blame it on. It's not meant to be theory bait. And I've always had this take. Five Nights at Freddy's did it differently, where it was just a guy. It was just a guy making a game just because he wanted to. And he made a game based on feedback that he got. He didn't mean to make it theory bait, but so many people were asking for a story and so many people were wanting more that he added a story. The problem is that it's one guy trying to add a story to this massive franchise now. He had a tight hold. I vaguely remember him talking about this. He had a good grasp on the story, and then it got big, and then he sold it, and then Security Breach didn't go how he wanted it to go. It didn't tell the story how he wanted it to, and now he's taking back the reins since Secret of the Mimic, and it's cleaned up. It looks better now. But there's still that part of it that's... I can see both sides, is what I'm trying to say. But I don't believe that Five Nights at Freddy's is subject to the same criticism in the same way that, like, Hello Neighbor or Poppy Playtime is.
In corners is just good business.
Hey, I'm Rat. Today I'm going to try and explain this phenomenon, its origins, the problems with it, and outline how we can, as a community, look to move past it. If at any point you find yourself enjoying, press subscribe, and if you don't, leave a nice comment telling me to myself or something. Thanks to my fantastic members who really just keep this whole thing going, and let's get on with it.
Are you a Roblox fanatic? Microsoft Rewards has a brand new way for you to earn.
A program from a 1968 Andy Warhol exhibition featured the now iconic quote, "In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes."
Damn.
That future is upon us, and I
Andy
contend now
Warhol
the
said
ultimate
that?
end goal for any public figure or product is to extend this 15 minutes for as long as possible by any means. Increasingly so, the best way to maintain relevancy in the 21st century is to navigate the attention economy, to curate a social media machine that will churn out content to keep users focused on you and only you, to make your branding a part of their daily doom scroll. Consumers are fickle and trends don't tend to last long, so you want
I mean, that's true. As someone who's, I'm 20 minutes into my first YouTube stream. Like, it's hard. It is. Technically speaking, I've been streaming for almost 2 years. And the max I've had on a stream was when I was on Twitch. I mean, not that I've been on YouTube for very long or contracted by anyone, but the max I ever had was maybe 8 viewers. I've never had more than 10 viewers, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Me and my buddy did a 24-hour stream. There might have been some stuff in there. I was so tired, and then I had to go to work or some shit. It was a whole thing. We need to either retry it or never look at that idea again. That did not go very well. Wait, did I put this up on... I'll rewind it a little bit. But did I put this up on in the Discord? I don't think I put this in the Discord. Oops. Oopsies. All right, there we go. Alright, back to it.
by any means. Increasingly so, the best way to maintain relevancy in the 21st century is to navigate the attention economy, to curate a social media machine that will churn out content to keep users focused on you and only you, to make your branding a part of their daily doom scroll. Consumers are fickle and trends don't tend to last long, so you want to become utterly unavoidable and as annoying as possible for as long as you can. This is just as true for individuals as it is for products. The largest
But I don't agree with that. You don't need to be annoying. You don't need to be annoying. I never found old YouTube annoying. Ever. I mean, obviously I'm streaming on it. I've been influenced and, grown up with it if I'm doing this, but you don't need to be annoying. This is where the fallacy falls apart. You don't. There's not many big YouTubers that are annoying. There are annoying streamers, I'll say that, but there aren't annoying YouTubers per se. There's people that you might not like watching or find entertaining, but to say that it's really annoying a lot, it's hard to say. But there's not many people putting out content on YouTube. It's that people misclassify it, and there are shitty YouTubers. There just are. But you don't need to be annoying, and I will die on this hill if I need to.
influencers and IPs around right now aren't only viewed through that.
Hell, I'm just simply trying to be just a guy who streams that you can watch sometimes. I don't want to be I don't know how much I want to be huge. I would love to make a living off of this. But that's not, I feel like, yeah, it's hard, but there's so many people watching YouTube nowadays. It's hard to gain the viewership, but once you get it, if you have it, it's probably staying. It's hard to lose it once you get it. You got to fuck up to get there. And I've made some mistakes in my time, and if anything came up now, all of my dumb shit was when I was like 15. You know, in high school doing some dumb shit, you know. It is what it is. But everyone's done dumb shit. But there's always a community for someone.
Own platforms, but
Not saying that everyone deserves the community, but there is always a community for someone.
rather through an extensive social media machine, a network of fan and, to be honest, also hate channels spreading every single content format. Think of your favorite game, and the odds are you spend more time consuming auxiliary content than actually playing it. Within the post-YouTube world of indie video games, this has been largely defined by a codependent relationship between content creators and game developers. When Let's Plays were first popping off on YouTube, the meta for horror games was to get a dude with a face cam to come scream at your monster.
Yeah. But it's exactly what I'm doing now. It's reactions. You have that reaction. You psychologically don't want to be alone. You want to see how other people, not that I'm a psychologist, but I've taken psychology classes. You want to see how other people react to the same thing that you reacted to. You know, you want to see if your reaction was valid. Not that everyone thinks this way, but I know I do. I would play games and then I'd want to see how other people reacted to the same moments in the game. And it's a feedback loop. It happens. But I see how it started. You know what I'm saying?
But indie horror content had its first major paradigm shift with the release of Scott Cawthon's Five Nights at Freddy's in 2014.
I find that hard to believe because, girl, you like Five Nights at Freddy's.
What does that mean?
Whilst this title did get its fair share of the usual
What?
Stop screaming! Stop!
But indie horror content had its first major paradigm shift with the release of Scott Cawthon's Five Nights at Freddy's in 2014.
I find that hard to believe because, girl, you like Five Nights at Freddy's.
What does that mean?
Whilst this title did get its fair share of the usual facecam jumpscare videos, it also saw itself at the center of an emergent content format, being game theories.
Sorry to interrupt.
I mean, I would argue that
But this is
game
important.
theory was already trending upwards at the time. Yeah, it definitely blew it up, but I mean, it was still on its way up. Game theory, I don't watch it as much since MatPat retired. I don't watch it as much, but I did. I watch it all the time. But I think that to say anything along the lines of, and I'm not saying that this is what the video is saying, but to say that game theory is what it is because of Five Nights at Freddy's, I think is a big understatement to the work that MatPat put in. MatPat would have gotten this shit to the same point regardless of anything. He would have made it to the same point.
Whilst this title did get its fair share of the usual facecam jumpscare videos, it also saw itself at the center of an emergent content format, being game theories.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to Game Theory, gaming's tangential learning experience. Through the
Ruining your childhood since 2013. I watch all them shits. Most of them shits. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
these videos, we hope you'll find more reasons to appreciate some of your favorite games, while sparking some interest in new, real-world topics.
In 2011, YouTuber Matthew Patrick, known colloquially as Matt,
Look at that man. Now he's all political or whatever. I don't keep up with what he's doing now, but I mean, I guess he's all in politics now.
Pat created the Game Theory channel. On this channel, he'd carve out a niche by creating video essays where he'd combine video game stories and mechanics with real-world science and philosophy to showcase different potential interpretations of the subject whilst educating on scientific concepts. From its release in 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's would become a staple of MatPat's channel. Five Nights at Freddy's is a game with a lot of lore, which in the world of video games basically just means story that you aren't explicitly shown, but rather details about the world or events that a player has to actively seek out to shape their interpretation of the source material. It's optional set dressing that helps make the world feel more lived in and developed through implications. It's this lore that gives creators like MatPat a lot of ammunition for crafting their own unique theories and takes on the series. MatPat is, in many ways, a major pillar of FNAF's success.
I would agree with that, though. I don't believe that. I think game theory would be where it's at regardless, but I think that without MatPat, Five Nights at Freddy's may or may not be where it is now, because it drove question marks. It added so many question marks to everything, the entirety of the FNAF, everything was driven by the questions posed by MatPat.
He's the first associated result when you Google Scott Cawthon, and he also cameoed in the 2023 FNAF movie. His videos on the topic have accrued tens of
Yandere Dev. Yeesh.
Major pillar of FNAF's success. He's the first associated result when you Google Scott Cawthon, and he also cameoed in the 2023 FNAF movie. His MatPat is, in many ways, a major pillar of FNAF's success. He's the first associated result when you Google Scott Cawthon, and he also cameoed in the 2023 FNAF movie. His videos on the topic have accrued tens of millions of views. However, MatPat is far from the only creator to foster an extensive back catalogue of FNAF video essays. Dedicated and passionate content creator millions of views. However, MatPat created to foster an extent.
Why does it sound like that? Why does it sound so bad?
However, MatPat is.
Do I sound so bad? Why does it sound like that? Why does it? No, I sound fine. Why does the video sound bad? It's probably hella quiet too. See how this sounds. It sounds so bad.
Far from the only creator to foster. However, MatPat is.
Why does it sound bad? What the fuck is happening?
an extensive back catalog.
Do I sound? What is going on?
An extensive back catalog.
That sounds better. There we go. Yay! Beautiful. Awesome. We got this shit. Alright. Audio should be fixed. Hopefully everything's good now. Sorry about that, guys.
Catalog of FNAF video
Alright,
essays.
we're gonna
FNAF
rewind.
MatPat on the topic have accrued tens of millions of views. However, MatPat is far from the only creator to foster an extensive back catalogue of FNAF video essays. FNAF has an immensely dedicated and passionate content creator ecosystem, from theorists to let's players to AU writers to fan game developers. Through its encapsulating
Wait,
lore and
MatPat does?
FNAF has an immensely dedicated and passionate content creator
Yeah.
ecosystem, from theorists
Yeah,
to
the
let's
whole
players to
community
AU
does.
writers to fan game developers. Through its
I mean, the entirety of the game itself was kind of built upon content creation, I feel like. I don't know if without content creation, if it would be where it's at. In my opinion, I don't think it would be where it's at anymore, or currently.
encapsulating lore and implicit mysteries, it reached a level of success practically unheard of for indie horror, and effectively created the playbook for the entire mascot horror subgenre.
Can you even call it indie anymore? Like, could you actually call Five Nights at Freddy's indie? I don't think you can.
It also had far-reaching influence across the entire medium of gaming and set a standard that almost every
Also, if the audio sounds fucked, let me know. I just tried to fix it. I think it should be good now. But if it's bad, let me know and I'll see what I can do.
single indie horror project that came after tried to adhere to. FNAF is,
Wait, what?
it also had far-reaching influence across the entire medium of gaming and set a standard that almost every single indie horror project that came after tried to adhere to.
And that's what I'm saying. It set a precedent without trying to set a precedent. That's the problem. That's why all this shit doesn't actually work in reality. And this is why you have games like Poppy Playtime, Hello Neighbor, Garden of Banban's in this weird spot, I feel like, where some people say it's good for ironic reasons, but then some people say it's bad for those same reasons. I don't know. But that's how you get this theory bait that he said. You have theory bait that spawned as a trend from Five Nights at Freddy's, which is developed by one guy who didn't plan it. So how the fuck do you expect to plan it? It doesn't work. You gotta have a good idea and then blossom it. In my opinion, you have to have a good idea and blossom it out. Otherwise, this whole theory shit doesn't work because, like I said, you as the storyteller know everything that's gonna happen. You don't know what your audience doesn't know. And they try and assume that they know what the audience knows, but they don't have a clue because they're not the audience.
FNAF is, in the present day, a pop culture staple, not just some niche indie horror game.
Yes.
I'd spend 5 nights at Freddy's just to show them how a real animatronic handles business.
The fanbase is kept glued to the series through a near
Punted. I'm punting you through the window into the parking lot, and you're not getting back in. I haven't seen Megan. Haven't seen it. But I'm confident that I could just stomp the fuck out of her. Alright? I'll admit that. Uncanny. I don't like mannequins. Megan fucks with me. I don't like it. But getting punted, especially especially if there's another animatronic. I'm sorry, Megan is not all that as an animatronic. Sorry. Hot take, maybe. I don't know. Haven't seen the movie, but that's my opinion.
Just some niche indie horror
There's a
game.
reason I didn't
I'd
see the
spend
movie.
5 nights at Freddy's just to show them
Heard it
how
was
a
good, though.
real animatronic handles business.
The fanbase is kept glued to the series through a near endless content cycle, which paired with fairly frequent new releases, keeps all eyes fixed on FNAF. In the over decade since its release, FNAF has become a merchandising giant and transmedia powerhouse. This raises the question, is Five Nights at Freddy's the first example of theory-based content curating a niche through fostering a community of online sleuths trying to uncover its mysteries?
No. It is the first. The difference is the intention. Five Nights at Freddy's did not have the intention of doing this, but it just so happened that that's how it played out. But it just so happens that, I mean, it's a figurehead, basically. It's the equivalent of they need someone to blame of starting it. I think that you could blame Hello Neighbor for the real start of it, but that's just my take.
The answer is kind of. It really depends. So let's talk in a bit more depth about it.
Whoa.
Also, I promise that I'm not gonna only react to Five Nights at Freddy's stuff. I have a lot of stuff planned. In fact, oops, sorry. Oh shit, you can't see. Fuck. I'll go back. Yeah, I got all kinds of stuff here. All kinds of stuff. So, it's not just gonna be this stuff. I'm reacting to everything.
Question. Is Five Nights at Freddy's the first example of theory-based content curating a niche through fostering a community of online sleuths trying to uncover its mysteries? The answer is kind of. It really depends. So let's talk in a bit more depth about it. So, we've established that Five Nights at Freddy's created a content niche wherein the game sustains relevancy through fostering a community of theorists and content creators, but we haven't really spoken about how this kills games. If anything, it actually sounds quite neat. Well, it can be, and there's a world of difference between a game with a well-crafted setting and lore and a theory-based game, so to explain the difference, let's take a look at an example of each. First,
And FNAF is in that weird middle ground. It sets up the world very well, I'll say. Each game, the world building is pretty good. The world building itself is pretty good in FNAF games. You have to admit that. It's the behind the scenes trying to piece it together. That's where it struggles. It's so broken to the point where it's entertaining. Almost. That's how I would put it. It's so broken story that it's got a fan base because nobody knows.
Five Nights at Freddy's, and second, Five Nights at Freddy's. The first three Five Nights at Freddy's games weren't planned
Big
from the
scale.
start, although Scott has said that whilst working on the second installment, he already had a rough idea of what to do for the third. Ultimately,
Well, that
across
makes
the
sense.
first three installments, there's a complete story told with minimal delineation from the ideas at the heart of the franchise. Even though these games weren't planned as a trilogy, tight focus and intentionality makes them work so well as a complete set. This trilogy of games has a strong thematic cohesion and central message that underpins the horror, being the benevolent face of evil. The first three Five Nights at Freddy's games use a combination of clues and minigames to tell a concise story about a purple guy using a beloved children's character to lure in kids to murder them. These children's souls then go on to possess animatronics, causing all kinds of issues for the company who owns said animatronics and their unwitting night staff. Eventually, in a dark bit of irony, the killer himself gets chased into and trapped inside of the very animatronic he used to lure in victims, possessing it and becoming a monster before eventually perishing in a fire at the end of the third game.
I want to know Scott's original story. I think there's been some chatter about a new game or something. I don't really know. That goes back to the first couple games, like the originals or something like that. And that's great. I would love to see that. But at some point, I do want Scott to I want Scott Cawthon to just come out and be like, this is what I meant. This is what I was trying to do, because I know he didn't actually. I know he had a good plan, but I mean, he didn't expect it to get to where it's at. He didn't expect the first 3 games to pop off as hard as they did. Hell, he's probably had 4 different final games at this point.
Simple, to the point, with a poignant story about how not everything that wishes to harm you will evoke fear. Rather, sometimes the most evil beings wear the most friendly faces. In making the monsters victims of the very same fate you could potentially undergo, there's an underlying tragedy that adds so much complexity and depth to what would otherwise be a pretty one-note game. I use these games as an example of this kind of storytelling being good to emphasize that the issue isn't wanting to tell non-linear stories or having an emphasis on mystery. The issue is when these mysteries cease having answers, and the actual point of your narrative is obscured by this bizarre obsession with confusing and outwitting your audience.
And that's where I feel like Scott did it best. He came out, it's known in that community, because I'm part of it. I would say that I'm not like deep in the community, but I do keep tabs on it just because I grew up with it, and it's entertaining for me. But he came out and said at one point, like, shit, what did he say? It was, he would leave threads of story that he didn't know where it would go to come back to later. And I feel like that's a good way to, I don't hate it. You know, some things in stories don't need to go anywhere. You don't need an answer to everything. But to add things in with the potential of needing it later, that's smart. That's really smart. But like, if you watch someone else's life, there's going to be story threads all over the place. But there's no point in trying to find an answer to everything. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get those stories. Or you're not going to get that closure of that story, because, I mean, it's life. You know, you don't get answers to everything. So I don't hate that method, but don't overuse it in games, I feel.
Another example of this kind of writing being done well, to prove I'm not just some non-linear plot hater, let's look at every video essayist's favourite game, Dark Souls. Woo, yeah, woo. If you ask someone who's just beaten Dark Souls for the first time what the plot actually was, you'd get a
never played a Dark Souls game. I don't think I'd be too good at it.
Response like,
and I'll admit that I don't think that I would be very good at Dark Souls games. If anyone happened to ever see me play Batman Arkham Asylum on stream, that shit was ass. I was so bad at it. I suck at this shit, okay? I'll say it right now. I need viewership before I play a Dark Souls game, because I'll get mad. I'll probably get mad at the bosses and shit.
You sort of...
Fucking 2 hours in and I'm pounding the desk after trying to beat a minion. Yeah, that'll be me.
You kind of... when you actively seek out information on... you sort of... you'd get a response like... If you ask someone who's just beaten Dark Souls for the first time what the plot actually was, you'd get a response like... You sort of... you kind of... when you actively seek out information on the story of Dark Souls, you aren't just hit with a bunch of auxiliary lore. Instead, item descriptions, environmental storytelling, optional dialogue, it all coalesces into this beautiful portrait that complements the game rather than existing alongside it.
But I think that's because Dark Souls games are supposed to be your story. Whatever stuff that you uncover in the game, that's just part of your playthrough. You know, if I play a game, I might go back to it a couple times, but I'm not really going to finish the story a bunch. The only game I've done that with is Red Dead Redemption 2, and I was obsessed with that game. I don't know if any game will come close to it for me. I'm trying to play through God of War right now. It's going pretty good, but I don't think it's aged as well as Red Dead 2. But it's your game. It's your story. If you uncover stuff or you want to do that, great, you can do that. But the entertainment factor of the game itself doesn't rely on you going so out of your way to uncover this story. You don't need to do that.
All the central themes of darkness and finding hope within are explored and iterated upon with every single boss, every NPC, every location. The central gameplay loop of dying and respawning is part of the story. Like Five Nights at Freddy's 1 through 3, seeking out additional lore doesn't hit you with some random side story, it actively enriches the experience. Everything is created in tandem, nothing feels tacked on, it's a holistic experience, just one with an abstract story structure. In an interview with YouTuber Dorko, Scott Cawthon himself said that he intended to finish the series with the third game. The only reason he kept going is because the jump scare wasn't very scary in the third one, so he needed to keep one-upping himself out of
I don't believe that. I think that he made a fourth one because the fans got too good at uncovering the secrets, and I feel like I don't think that it's because it wasn't scary enough. Like, FNAF 3 is known to not be scary, but I don't think that it's why he made a fourth one. I mean, he went the other direction in the fourth one, but I think that the reason why he made a fourth one is to explain things in the story that didn't make sense. He's said this before, too. He made more games because he realized that there's plot threads that didn't make sense, and so he had to make it make sense, and so that's what he's doing. And now you get to Security Breach, and it's broken, and it's supposed to be a new era of FNAF, and what, they made Ruin and they haven't made another? That's for a reason. Modern FNAF doesn't make sense. You need to explain the past stuff before you can start tacking on more story, I feel like. Because the story behind it doesn't make sense right now. It's starting to, though. The movie, some of the books, Secret of the Mimic. Hopefully this next game makes sense, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't even... There's almost nothing out about the next game. It's a third game. It's a third game. Of course, it was part of a trilogy.
I was making that game. In my mind, that was the end of a trilogy.
Yeah.
You know, I think in my mind the story was going to be 3 games, and in all honesty, I think Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was where I kind of started letting myself be driven a little bit more by criticisms of the game than maybe I had before. Before, everybody was just really, really excited, you know, happy to have all this stuff. But whenever 3 came out, I really was starting to pay attention to criticism. You know, for instance, you know, even though I may have, you know, in some, you know, alternate life, may have left the series alone at 3, people were not happy with the jump scare, and it's kind of a.
But I guess I can see how that such a small thing would affect it, because you gotta think, if you just suddenly become as big as Scott Cawthon has, as quickly as he did, I mean, the original games peaked in the third game. That's when hype was the highest it's ever been. Even now, that's the highest it's ever been. It makes sense. I mean, I guess I never thought about that. It does make sense. He could have been driven by that, but if that's the case, if that's fully the case, I don't think he would have made like Sister Location and all these other games.
It's kind of as simple as that. People weren't happy with the jump scare of Springtrap, and that really bothered me. And so then that kind of, in my mind, that wouldn't let the series rest in a way, because I wanted to make another entry that was really, really scary again.
This trilogy pretty neatly concludes the arc of the Purple Guy and the Haunted Animatronics with a clearly defined timeline and series of events that are easy to follow once you actually pay a bit of attention. However, Five Nights at Freddy's did not end with the third game, and as it continued it saw a marked shift away from a simple narrative-told world to a bit of a jumble of ideas, retcons, and a constant escalation of stakes that saw it move away from a more grounded and eerie story to, honestly, absolute cartoon nonsense.
But the story was so broken that you needed those other games to explain things. That's the point I'll raise.
The Five Nights at Freddy's community got so utterly lore-rotted at one point that they spent literal years trying to figure out what was in some random box. I don't think even Scott knew.
Dude, the box. Scott said that he's changed it multiple times. Couldn't tell you what's in it now. I think it's going to come back up randomly at some point. But I don't know what... I mean, I did forget about it. I know it had some text on it that said some things are best left forgotten for now or something. And then it changed to forever. I don't think it's that big a deal. But it did have a chokehold on the community. I remember sitting down and having text conversations with my friends in middle school about what could be in the box. And then theorizing about the third game and shit. I remember that. I remember all of that. Oh my god.
Knew what was in this box.
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
If the original trilogy of games is the classic album The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, sleek, groundbreaking, to the point, then every subsequent game is Lauryn Hill's MTV Unplugged. It's kind of fun, full of good ideas, it's interesting. In short bursts, but it's also just kind of all over the place and a bit weird. I still enjoy pretty much all of the post Five Nights at Freddy's free games to some extent. The character design remains amazing, the gameplay is fine-tuned, and honestly...
Dude, Scott's got a keen eye for character design. But I think he has a lot of background in that stuff. I think he helped out with a lot of things. I can't verify it though.
A lot better most of the time, and the fan songs still bang, but it's undeniable that the slew of new characters and generally abstract direction of the series is no doubt born out of an idea to iterate upon the story forever without ever really deviating from the status quo. Rather than telling a compelling and complete story, the purpose is now to just keep adding new content to the world forever and ever, even if it actively undermines itself in doing so. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the character of William Afton, the purple guy I mentioned earlier. In the first
We don't even know what all depictions are actually supposed to be purple guy. And he's got a point on this. Like, who is this man? Yes, he's probably William Afton. Yes, we've gotten confirmation. But who is this guy? We don't know. We don't know his anything. But I think that at some point there's going to be a game that comes out, whether that be from Steel Wool or direct from Scott Cawthon, where they basically explain everything. And everything's laid out. I have a strong feeling that it's going to get messy to the point where the only option is to put it all out on the table and then explain that shit. I think that's the best thing that you can do.
First 3 games, he's this mysterious and sadistic serial killer. Beyond this, he's a mad scientist, abusive father, persona creator, corporate juggernaut, drunk driving aficionado. He's kind of everything. This information is not only revealed through minigames and clues, but also cringy supervillain dialogue and a frankly insane amount of extra material, like the many, many books on the subject.
What a deceptive calling. I knew it was a lie the moment I heard it, obviously. But it is intriguing nonetheless. Fascinating.
The character...
What is that from? I've never heard that. What is that from? I haven't heard that. Oh my gosh, are we getting new stuff in a random video? That's crazy. I know it's not new. I just haven't heard it.
Deceptive calling. I knew it was a lie the moment I heard it, obviously. But it is intriguing nonetheless. Fascinating.
The characterization goes from creepy to being the most convoluted pile of sometimes contradictory traits ever. It feels like rather than being a fully realized character, Afton is more just whatever the plot needs him to be at best, and a barrage of traits made to generate content for AI-generated YouTube shorts at worst.
That's just the way you make me.
But I think that saying that it's just to add to YouTube or to clicks and stuff, I think is an understatement. I do genuinely have faith that they're trying to make it make sense. It's just he's been written into a hole, and the only chance at redemption of this character, Purple Guy or William Afton or Willie A or whatever you want to say, the only way to make it make sense is the movie, because then you get a hard storyline. Until you see him in game that's not 8-bit, that's the best way that you're going to find out who this man is. And then they go out and say, it's tangential to canon. I don't know. What part is real, what part's not? Just give me an answer, man.
Shorts at worst.
Did you know it was revealed in the Five Nights at Freddy's coloring book that William Afton's experiments into Remnant led to him pooping in a Springtrap suit? This led to the birth of Springtrap, the Stinky Winky animatronic. Follow me for more and buy my merch, please, please, please,
I know
please.
it's not. There's no way it's real.
The series develops this weird relationship with what is arguably its main character, throwing so much auxiliary content at him that now we have entire extensive deep dives into everything he does.
I bet the only way they can explain it is by saying, look, he lived till he was 70. He was 70 when he got in that Springlock suit and died in FNAF 3. He was like 70 years old. That's a long life. A lot can happen in your life in 70 years.
Midnight Motorist is a minigame with the incredibly simple message that drunk driving is badass, and it has its own dedicated theorist community. William Afton, and by extension his family, have lost almost all of their intrigue and mystique through this bizarre need to just keep adding content, even after we kind of don't need to anymore. However, when the series tried to move away from William Afton and do something new, then the obsession with adding lore and insecurity about saying anything too definitive was laid bare with Security Breach. Where the initial trilogy of games has a well-defined story that complements gameplay, the trilogy of Security Breach, Ruin, and Secret of the Mimic really highlights just how disjointed the story of Five Nights at Freddy's has become.
But they're not meant to make sense together. Like, yes, they are in the grand scheme of things, but they're not meant to make sense all together back to back to back. I think Ruin is supposed to take place like 10 years after Security Breach. Ruin takes place ages before that, before the first original Five Nights at Freddy's game. That's like a backtracking. So I don't think that that's a good scale to go on.
The initial villain setup here is Vanny, a William Afton knockoff, but due
The Vanny story did not make sense.
to an extensive number of cuts detailed in this video by Not Real Name Not At All, this character has almost no real presence in the game. They're a huge missed opportunity. The game flirts with a few other potential villains with its animatronics, particularly the daycare attendant and then Burntrap, who is kind of just William Afton again also. Then in Ruin, the game shifts focus to this new villain, the Mimic, who is also just kind of a William Afton ripoff, but they get a bit more backstory and fleshing out in Secret of the Mimic. So already this is just a load of new characters introduced and then dropped in favor of just throwing new content out every single release. But what makes it incredibly frustrating is that all of these characters appear to have been written in a vacuum with little to no consideration to what their game's wider themes actually are.
But if we're in universe, it's a company. They're gonna just make shit. You can explain that so quickly. It's what was best for the company.
Every character feels like they were designed with their own unique lore, YouTube short, and Funko Pop figure in mind before how they actually fit into the game was considered. When actually playing these games, every major character is cordoned off into their own themed segment with minimal overlap with anything else, almost like their entire essence has to be quarantined from the wider game. This habit of cordoning each character off as their own distinct set piece without much consideration for the wider implications, crossover, or their implementation and actual role in the story isn't unique or new to the FNAF games either. It's a mascot horror staple at this point. To explain this phenomenon, let's ask a question. What is the major defining character trait of all of the Glamrock animatronics from Security Breach? Well, these characters are
shoulder pads. It's going to be the shoulder pads. He's going to mention the shoulder pads. Watch. It's going to be 80s with the shoulder pads and guitars. Clocking it now.
Aren't ghosts anymore, rather they're AI that was given such advanced programming that they basically are just sentient and self-aware creatures. However, they're simultaneously supposed to be characters to represent ideals and concepts. They have to be perfect. This leads to deep-rooted contradiction that emerges as instability across the band, particularly in Roxy's insecurity and Chica's ED. So naturally, the best villain to interplay with these characters and their themes is the Mimic, a being who can do everything they can do but better, and perfectly embody any concept they need to. All of these characters have fear of being scrapped and replaced by another Endo who can do what they can do, and that's the Mimic's whole deal. The Mimic influencing all of these characters would help them grapple with their insecurities. The existence of the Mimic contrasts their almost human-like nature with a much more perfect machine. Through interplay with a more perfect and idealized caricature of themselves played by the Mimic, every character could contend with the conflict at the heart of their essence organically and through gameplay. Opening themselves up to possession allows these characters to indulge their worst vices and remove the humanity that defines them. The Mimic's ability to perfectly play any role means they could easily do everything the Glamrocks wish they could, but
yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't think about it. They did kind of throw everything at the wall to see what would stick. I will say that. They did. They really did. And for better or for worse, it did work. At the end of the day, Security Breach was a success on paper. In reality, that's a different story. I don't know if I'd say it was a success, because for something to be a success, the content needs to back up the hype. Not necessarily the hype, but it needs to back up what it was trying to be. And Security Breach does not do that. I couldn't even finish the game. I got soft locked multiple times, got mad, and then stopped playing. I enjoyed playing it when it worked, though.
Their more calculating robotic personality contrasts that self-awareness that makes the Glamrock
was not scary.
So endearing. But the Mimic isn't even from Security Breach's base game. They have almost no crossover with these characters who so perfectly contrast them. Instead, their perfect foil is deployed in a completely different game, and the villain in Security Breach is just this rabbit girl with almost no thematic crossover or even presence. It's pretty evident from Security Breach onwards that every single character, segment, and new installment is written without much consideration for the big picture. Rather, the focus is very much on just adding as much content as possible.
But that's because it's supposed... I mean, I know this shit. It's supposed to be the next story. They just didn't do it well, and they're gonna have to retcon probably the entire game.
This is also true of the clues sprinkled throughout the game. In the original releases, all of the clues told us more about the actual happenings of the game. In Secret of the Mimic, we get the backstory of the copyright to the chicken character, something that quite literally nobody has ever asked for. The focus isn't on the actual game and the immediate experience, but rather on just shoving as many ideas as possible in. When all you care about is feeding the content mills, then you abandon quality in favor of quantity, and it's just a jumble of ideas. The franchise loses a lot of its mystique and focus through the shift from providing a holistic experience to providing a literal endless stream of shiny new things and bold recontextualizations. In trying to maintain its space in the attention economy, FNAF has stopped being about anything and is instead just a generator that throws out a cool new robot for you to talk about the backstory of every few months.
Yeah, it's kind of just a cycle of talking about the backstory. There's not a whole lot of new stuff, but they have to add new stuff to make the old stuff make sense. Sucks, but it works. But it works because... They'll probably get into it, but it works because... that's how it started. You can tell it when it started, it wasn't supposed to be this messy, which is why it has such a dedicated following. It's not like the other games that he'll probably talk about where they went into development this way And that's why it fell apart, because you couldn't hook anyone on the mystery long enough.
Feels more like a bunch of OCs cobbled together in a modular fashion than a real story with any actual point. However, whilst Five Nights at Freddy's was the first game to lean into this, it is far from the worst.
I love entering my neighbors' houses and being silly.
If Five Nights at Freddy's is the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, iconic, timeless, frankly a banger, then Hello Neighbor is one of those infamous Lauryn Hill shows where she doesn't show up on time and kind of phones it in. Okay, I'm gonna stop with the Lauryn Hill comparisons. I have no idea what I was thinking when I wrote this. Like, realistically, how big is the crossover of Mascot Horror fans and Fugees fans? This was stupid. This is so stupid. What am I doing with my life? Whilst Hello Neighbor started development before Five Nights at Freddy's, it released its first alpha build in 2016 after the first few Five Nights at Freddy's games had been released, and it followed.
Peak Hello Neighbor was alpha. That's not a good thing. Your peak was when your game was still being made. You fell off so hard that your real game got almost no notoriety. Your real game got all of the hate. But the alphas are talked about to this day. The alphas, goated games. Great games.
The Mascot Horror playbook laid out to a T. They sent keys to as many YouTubers as possible and relentlessly tweeted at MatPat with every update to try and get that big.
That was so embarrassing. That was so embarrassing. Oh my god. That was tough. That was tough.
Big, juicy, voluptuous game theory exposure. Yeah, baby, yeah. While it can be debated that Five Nights at Freddy's was killed by its obsession with lore and adding story details, the games are still pretty popular and pretty good, to be honest, outside of the story kind of being all over the place. There's a little debate to be had about Hello Neighbor. It's pretty evident what happened here. The initial selling point of Hello Neighbor was the neighbor's AI. It was a fun game where you got chased around by an enemy who, despite quite a lot of bugs, was responsive to the player's actions and would try to outsmart you in this cat and mouse chase. The fun of the game, the thing people enjoyed, was the neighbor. The chases, the tension of being in a house where this intelligent AI was trying to track you down. However, with each new release, the neighbor was dropped in favor of making the house bigger, adding more stuff, more content. Exploration around the house was expanded, but the neighbor wasn't even present within most of these new zones, shifting from a real active threat to an occasional irritant.
Yeah, kind of like how in the main game, he can't even go up to the second or the third floor, I believe. Or maybe he can, but I know in one of the releases, he couldn't go to the second floor, third floor, or anything. He was just trapped on the first floor. So as soon as you got past it, you could leave. I remember this so vividly. I remember thinking I was so smart because I went around this gate that would go up, and you jump on a light post. Y'all probably know this. You jump on a light post, and then you jump around the gate, and then you don't have to open the gate if you don't want to. Made the rest of the game so easy. It's just platforming at that point, and it's shitty platforming. That's why I hated it. Have never beat the game. Wanted to, stopped caring for the platforming. Got a little too confusing.
Within the full release, there were several levels with minimal implementation of the neighbor, and the grand finale, Act 4, is a giant empty parkour segment wherein the neighbor himself is not an active or present threat, but rather set dressing. Beyond the first act, and especially in the finale, the game's obsession with this self-indulgent abstract storytelling full of cryptic hints and devoid of any real substance actively hinders its ability to be a tense or interesting horror game. Full levels are dedicated not to player engagement or curating a fun experience, but rather to crafting lore. In following the Five Nights at Freddy's playbook to the letter, Hello Neighbor surpassed it in the department of actively sidelining its ability to be an actual video game in favor of creating an endless content mill.
Because they went into it trying to make lore. Make a good game. Make a good game. The game was fine as a game. Make that the shit that you do. You can release another game that explains a story in it, but you don't need it to be the whole premise of your game. I hate when games do this. Comic book games are fine. It's very story driven. But you want to know what they did first? In all of the development logs and all that, you will see they prioritized gameplay. Don't make the story first. Make the story make sense with your gameplay, and you've probably got it. There's always exceptions. But holy shit, how is the gameplay so bad?
Not insignificant amount of negative critical response and some pushback, Hello Neighbor succeeded in its aim of creating a mascot horror with franchise potential. Publisher tinyBuild immediately set about marketing the hell out of this game, releasing books that made upwards of $16 million in revenue, as well as spin-off games, including a Stadia-exclusive racing game for whatever reason. Around this time, tinyBuild CEO Alex Nichiporchik basically stated my initial thesis from the introduction to this video, saying, "Indie publishing stopped being a sustainable business model the minute the number of mid-sized publishers exceeded the number of good games being developed. Instead of focusing on one-off publishing deals, it's better to build strong and entertaining brands. That means large in-house development infrastructure that can support both internal games and external studios."
But that's not true. Indie games are exploding. Wait, when was this published? This was 10 months ago. That's not true. I mean, you have games like Schedule 1 blowing up. Like, you have games upon games being released by indie developers. Single people developing a game that goes mega wild. Okay? I'm so excited to play Mecha Chameleon. Or Mecha Chameleon. I don't know. I don't know which one how it's actually pronounced. I've seen it pronounced both ways, so I apologize if I'm wrong. But indie game, Repo, Lethal Company, Content Warning, what was I just talking about? Mecha Chameleon. All these games, indie games. This is not true. This is not true. I hate when there's like we need to franchise this. Take it slow, man. Develop some shit that's good.
One way in which tinyBuild kept the marketability of the Neighbor brand was through endless lore, with the story being expanded infinitely through books, spin-offs, and eventually a full-blown sequel. I think there might be a third game coming out as well. Maybe, I don't know. I don't really care. It's worth noting here that
I will not be playing it. I didn't play the second one either. Didn't finish the first. Didn't play the second. Won't play the third.
Initial mystery of Hello Neighbor was, what is my weird neighbor keeping in his basement? It could quite literally be anything. It could be Pokemon cards. It could be a copy of The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. But now the series has extensive ARG rollouts to promote new games, and ghosts and ancient secret cults are part of the story. It's just so much stuff added not to tell an engaging story, but rather to extend the 15-minute fame of the IP for as long as possible. These mysteries are not written to be solved, they're not written with answers in mind. Simple questions are convoluted and abstracted ad nauseum, all with the focus of generating endless content so that you can sell more books, plushies, cartoons, and spin-off racing games. What concrete information and answers do exist are transient, subject to change at any time should they no longer facilitate the goal of keeping the story moving, irrespective of how interesting it actually is. This is what I meant in the introduction when I said the industry standard being established is a culture of writing questions but no answers. The intention is to outsource the writing to the community.
But I think that there's more answers. I think there's more answers than the companies let you have. I fully believe this. There are more answers than they will admit. They have all the answers. If they want to give you an answer, they'll give you an answer. But tinyBuild wants this. They want this. You know, like they want this shit. Sorry, I'm going to move my face cam a little bit. Hope that's okay. Also not asking.
Them bicker and theorize forever. not out of a desire to craft an intriguing mystery, but rather to create a free marketing team. It's so cynical, and it robs your most invested fans of closure and genuine engaging storytelling. This is a very bad standard to set. Eventually, people are going to get bored of being provided nothing but endless clues and no answers. You can't extend a mystery forever. If nothing's ever allowed to end, then what's even the point of writing stories for games? If we aren't going to try and tell complete stories, then what are we writing for? We're just sort of adding details to try and create worlds that are just as fleshed out and convoluted as our own. Nobody likes the world.
It's like those half memes. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like those half memes where it's just top text and then it doesn't finish the rest. And I love those, but in that context, it makes sense. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's entertaining that it doesn't make sense. This is just not entertaining because it doesn't make sense.
We live in, that's why people play video games, you know, like, there should be a story, like an actual story you can follow. It should be able to tell you something, right? It should have a point, no? But Hello Neighbor isn't even the worst example of this very cynical lore without story direction, so let's take a look at the gold standard of slop.
Hungry. Dude, Garten of Banban. Oh my goodness. That's a whole thing. That is a whole rabbit hole.
Of the Five Nights at Freddy's Let's take a look at the gold standard of slop. Garten of Banban is the most cynical application of the Five Nights at Freddy's inspired mascot horror playbook I've ever seen. It plays into all of the most generic and trite tropes of the genre to farm money from a largely juvenile audience, or I guess their parents. This game exists entirely to vomit out more characters that can be added into iPad Baby Elsagate type content and sold as marketable plushies. Even more so than contemporaries like Poppy's Playtime, which at least attempt to try and attach some interesting ideas and fun gameplay mechanics to their plushie commercials, this is just bad. It's brain rot in its purest form. Garten of Banban was developed by the Euphoric brothers, who robbed us of their potential magnum opus Poo Poo Monster in favour of releasing this. Prior to Garten...
Oh no, not Poo Poo Monster. Oh god, they should have made that.
Of Banban, they tried to make more serious and conventional horror to minimal fanfare and mild controversy, which I don't have time to cover, before fully leaning into the mascot horror.
I watched a video on that. I watched a Wicked Wizard video on that. Goated. Shout out Wicked Wizard. Yeah. Not the right play at all, dude. Not the right play.
A money machine. Garten of Banban is a game full of and absolutely no real substance, a 10 or so minute mid-fest. The sequels aren't much better. It's basically a slapdash proof of concept to try and launch the IP as fast as possible, with the first game featuring a real world merch store and a link to wishlist the second installment before work had even begun on it. The story wasn't written to actually say anything, rather to facilitate the content mill, to keep the attention economy locked in on their brand. Each new...
And I think that Garten of Banban is an example of what I've been saying taken too far. Like, they took it too far, essentially, in the gameplay, but not far enough in the gameplay. And then they took it kind of too far in the story at points, but then also not far enough. It's the weirdest game this whole game dynamic, the weirdest one I've ever known. It's so weird.
Chapter is a hastily constructed asset flip with only a handful of original things, mainly the marketable characters because, we gotta move these t-shirts, bro. We gotta sell these plushies. It's all the worst parts of this approach laid bare, and even with this little effort it succeeded because the industry standard has been set, the bar's in hell. Garten of Banban is so extremely substanceless that even other mascot horror creators turned on it, with the creator of Bendy and the Ink Machine releasing a parody making fun of the game called Meatly's Storage World. However, none of this matters because Garten of Banban isn't the issue.
Go to game, by the way, Bendy and the Ink Machine. I'm currently playing that. Hoping to get next video, next episode, next chapter, however you want to say it, hoping to get it out either next week or the week after on Wednesday. I've been working a lot of doubles at my day job, so haven't had a lot of time to record. But I'm hoping to be able to record here soon and then cut it down from there and see how that goes.
It's symptomatic of the culture we have created, of the industry standards that have been allowed to happen. Garten of Banban is kiddie slop for iPad babies. It's nothing too exceptional or out of the ordinary. I don't highlight it to say this franchise has the hidden potential to be some A24 elevated horror with a change of direction. The game wasn't killed, it was dead on arrival, and I'm far from the target audience. You can disagree with me.
I'm not agreeing, but I'm not disagreeing. We'll talk about it if it comes up.
Yeah, this just isn't for me. I'm not highlighting it to say, oh, this is a game that was killed by law. I'm highlighting to ask, why is this one of the most prominent faces in horror across all demographics? It's fine to have sanitized...
Okay, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I feel like I know why. I think it's because... it's the idea of seeing something that you love and that you adore seeing and being a part of when you're a kid or a young adult. And then you grow up and then you get to be part of the more mature parts of that audience. That's what it is. And I think. Because you can market this to kids and not tell them and they just won't know. They just won't know about the darker sides of the lore, the darker sides of the story that are supposedly written in. They won't know it. But then what you can do from there is as they get older, it's on the parents. And I guarantee you this is going to come up in some kind of law or something. Not law, but in some kind of court ruling. But it's up to the parents to manage when they get introduced to each part of it, because you have this thing that you like that looks childish, and then you have stages where it becomes more messed up, more horrific as you learn more about the story. And that's kind of what happened to Five Nights at Freddy's and Hello Neighbor. They market to kids, and then they hope that when those kids grow up, they can get into the darker parts. When just make the darker parts. Just let that be. That's more interesting. You're going to get more people into it by doing that. You're not going to get people into it by marketing the kids and then it's this adult scary game. Why? Why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. Whoa! Oh my goodness. Why am I so big? Oh. There it is.
PG-rated horror for kids. It's bad that this is pretty much the only horror to get exposure in the space because it leans the hardest into this lore-first writing. I adored the children's horror.
Garten of Banban is not lore first. I don't even know what it is first.
Movie Monster House. But if every horror movie was Monster House, then I'd probably hate it. I'd hate it even more if instead of just letting me watch the story, it demanded I purchase another movie to get 1/5 of Chowder's ominous backstory.
It's time for an in-your-face disgrace!
Presenting Odd Pieces.
Love the clips from Monster House. Love it.
Horrible that this absolute YouTube short It's terrible that this absolute YouTube Shorts core game is representative of an industry standard spanning almost all well-known indie games. I
don't think it's an industry standard. It's an industry method, but it's not a standard. I mean, you look at other games. I mean, shoot, the new Bendy game that's supposed to come out here soon, The Cage, it's expressly mature. Expressly mature. It's gonna have some fucked up things in it, I think, is what I've heard. But I wouldn't say that it's the standard of the industry. Not that I'm in the industry, but I don't think that it is. You don't see it enough for it to be the industry standard.
This game existing because it really does strip back all.
It was just a big phase with it.
The pretense and lay bare exactly how little care or attention to detail or planning needs to go into a series for it to be picked up. It's the perfect example of what I'm talking about. This game has every right to exist, but it takes up so much space in the lane of indie horror that I can't help but despise it. Were it the exception and not the rule, it wouldn't be a problem, but that simply isn't the case. Garden of Banban is everything I hate about the current state of indie games and what developers need to do to get any kind of status. It feels like every aspect was run through 16 AR.
It kinda set the minimum bar. This is what you need to do to get started. It kind of just set a minimum. If you want to make a game in this what's the word? If you want to make a game in this kind of vein, in this genre of horror games, you have to have something like this, and there's got to be a minimum. There has to be. And I think that Garden of Banban made that minimum a thing.
And 7 focus groups to maximize.
And I have to respect it. To some extent, I have to respect it. It'd be wrong of me not to.
Marketability and engagement. The abstract and vague storyline is just one facet of this. It's soulless, utterly devoid of any meaning or purpose. The story was written entirely to generate faux intrigue until around halfway through the series, when they just gave up and made everything a joke. It has nothing to say. Nothing interesting or redeeming to it. All that matters is a response big enough to keep the cash flow going. Absolutely nothing else is even considered. I can keep listing these effortless games designed entirely to create a never-ending number of theory videos, but I think by now I should have made my point, and I want to pivot into something a bit more hopeful. Let's stop talking about examples and go back to the big picture. Lore is killing games, but why, and how can we change this?
There may be times when you purchase something of questionable quality.
All of these examples are great, but they only paint a small picture of the wider whole. Frankly, the indie landscape is becoming so incredibly oversaturated with this utter slop because it sells well, it dominates the attention economy, it gets big views on YouTube and fosters huge audiences because it's not a one and done story, but rather something you can build an entire content farm around. As we saw in the Hello Neighbor section, these studios are well aware of this. The idea isn't to create art or interactive experiences, it's to bleed the customers dry and fry their dopamine with endless shiny new content. Keep the brand going at all costs. But this is a problem because if we just have these infinite stories designed to...
It will get to that point. I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. I don't think we're at a point where all of these games are at a desperation level of we need to keep people around. I don't think we're there yet. We're definitely getting there. You're saying that with Hello Neighbor. But like, what other games are there? Like, what other games are even in this category? Like, I know you could say Hello Neighbor, you could say Bendy and FNAF and what was he just talking about? Garden of Banban and Poppy Playtime. You can make the argument for that, but what else is there besides some one-off game here and there? I feel like there isn't a whole lot outside of that. I could be completely wrong, but I think that I don't think that vein of games is as prominent as some people say. Just the few games that are in it turn money.
end or relinquish their hold on the audience. We just have these infinite stories designed to never end or relinquish their hold on the audience, then there's no room to tell completed stories. No room to allow for a creator to explore a total narrative, to allow their fans closure and catharsis. Every game story is written not to be an encapsulation of a single core essence, but rather to be everything at all times for every possible audience, and that just makes everything so bland and samey. It means that every game just stretches on forever into this beige abyss. Without moving on and leaving space for new creations, we're left with the shambling carcasses of once giants wearing a bright new dress every week as they're carted out to the street corner by the corporate overlords. Honestly, there's a lost beauty in art in actually just ending something instead of letting it fade away as it thrashes around and pathetically begs for your attention with every dying breath. But I want to be hopeful and say this is not to say that the indie horror space is devoid of any fresh ideas or fun concepts. Whilst algorithms and exposure are heavily skewed in the direction of bottom of the barrel theory bait, there's a whole world of aspiring creatives who actually care, who actually want to tell stories and push the boundaries of the medium, who consider gaming to be an art form, something that people should care about rather than just the infinite money glitch. Here's a list of interesting lesser-known horror games with complete stories, because developers who actually put in time and effort and want to say something do deserve to be celebrated.
Yes, give me games. All of these are going to probably be added to my list after I'm done watching this video.
Parasocial, a game where you play as a VTuber trying to evade a deranged
heard of this. Heard that it's terrifying, but fantastic.
chatter. I have a video about this.
Haven't seen it. I haven't seen it be played. Haven't played it. Don't know if I will.
This one. Without a Dawn, a beautiful ASCII psychological horror where you try and escape your own intrusive thoughts out in the wilderness. A phenomenal narrative with a super unique art style and lots of room for analysis. Ad Infinitum, a World War I psychological horror where you try and grapple with the horrific manifestations of your own failings as a young, arrogant German commander hired through nepotism rather than merit. It's one of those you are the bad guy games. How Fish is Made, a surrealist horror with the gameplay of Katamari Damacy, one for the real weirdos out there to be honest. The Strange Men Anthology, classic jumpscare heavy RPG maker horror with some alternate paths that encourage player choice, great popcorn horror to play with some friends, and a pretty sizable community you can share your theories and takes with. Fear the Spotlight, a PSX-style sapphic survival horror game about all aspects of forbidden and unrequited love, both wholesome and horrifying, great for Silent Hill fans and lesbians alike, although the Venn diagram there is basically a circle. The Boba Tea Shop, a cozy shop simulator with a ghostly horror narrative that runs parallel, great for people who enjoy both relaxing games and horror. What Remains of Edith Finch, a surrealist musing on familial trauma, one for psychology enjoyers. This one's 2 games, both Frambo and Little Misfortune. They're Tim Burton.
Heard that those are fantastic games. They are Tim Burton. I guess I never thought about that. But fantastic games. Won't be playing them. I watched YouTubers play it when it came out, and there's something to be said of if you watch someone play it, you're not going to get the same experience watching someone else or playing it yourself and recording yourself. But I mean, if you guys want to see me play it, then I'll play it. I do know that it's kind of pick your own adventure kind of thing.
Storybook point-and-click adventures with hugely disturbing implicit lore, but a complete narrative that complements it and a splash of dark humour. Now, these are just some of my favourites, but my call to action here is talk about and celebrate your favourite indies. Gaming isn't dying, it's just heavily skewed in favour of half-baked dog shit, because that's what generates the content. When you go and look at the genuinely
yeah, like how some game companies are putting out broken games intentionally, just so that they can keep updating it. I'm not saying that's what they do, but it definitely seems that way when you have like Cyberpunk, Security Breach, Titanfall, Days End, all these games coming out that came out broken when they came out, and then they get this roadmap how it's gonna be better, and it just keeps people staying. That's all it does. It just helps people stay watching or stay paying attention to it. That's the only reason it's there, I feel like. Or it's just to hit a deadline, when I would have more respect for a company coming out and being like, yo guys, we need more time. I respect it.
Interesting indies that get a big push and foster fan bases, word of mouth is what pushes it. Creators taking the time to sit down and talk about them is what drew eyes to successful indie games like Mouthwashing, Fear and Hunger, Iron Lung, games that actually do have something to say, develop story, and obvious passion. Only through actively pushing for legitimately good art does the industry shift to legitimize it. It requires concerted effort and pressure from the consumer base to banish the industry's worst practices, because there's no motivation to do it if there isn't a consumer pushback. This isn't some stupid run up my comment section call to action either. I don't care if you want to share your favorites in my comments. I'm telling you to make your own YouTube video. Put your favorite creators onto those hidden gems. Go live right now, even if you've just got an audience of 2 people and a dog, and just show a bit of love to those creatives who go against the financial incentive to produce crap and actually make something with care. I know for a fact that even the tiniest bit of exposure could mean the world to some of these passionate unknown creatives, and you can be the person to do that for them. I get a lot of comments from people asking me to cover their favorite game, and whilst I always love to get suggestions and I'm always down to check out new things, my advice is always the same here. I'm not going to match your passion or energy for your favorite thing. If you feel so strongly about something, then you should be the one to talk about it. You're a human being with passions and interests. If something genuinely makes you feel something...
Yeah, I think that there needs to be something done. Not that anything can be done about it, but there's a lot of things that would be really cool if people just talked about it. But there's so many people that will shit on you just for liking something or just loving something. It doesn't even matter what it is. There's just people that will just shit on you. And I'm guilty of not bringing things up because of it. I barely talk about FNAF and how much I like FNAF as a result of this. Like, you're gonna have people like that, but you just gotta just talk about it. If you like it, you might even get more people talking about it. You might get more people that like it. Who knows?
And share that feeling. The purpose of art is to evoke responses, not to lull you to sleep with predictable, endless AI-adjacent garbage. An implicit benefit of all these social media platforms and user-generated media is that it should democratize art. It should allow sufficiently dedicated and passionate creatives to find and foster communities. However, increasingly so, we allowed the corporatized stain of old media to infect the space through insipid algorithms, rather than pushing back against it and demanding better. The worst practices exist purely because there is incentive to engage in them. By granting confidence and instilling motivation within these aspirant developers beginning their journeys, we can see more of them actively pursue their dream projects. We get more good art. Look at the Euphoric brothers who made Garten of Banban. They were trying before they saw that they could just give up. The solution isn't to endlessly deride and put down devs who engage in these practices. It's fun and all, but it's little more than rage bait and engagement farming of a
Yeah, there needs to be more constructivism. Not just hate. There needs to be constructivism. There's a lot of people that know what they're talking about. I'm not saying that I'm one of them. There's a lot of people that know what they're talking about. If they did so much as share their information more than they do, I bet things would be very different.
Different kind. The solution is to uplift truly talented and creative creators. If you feel like there should be a space in any art to promote what you care about and you can't find one, then make one yourself. This happens in music, it happens in traditional art, it should happen in gaming. So no, law doesn't kill games, rather it's a carrion bird pecking at the twitching carcass of the medium. As with all of the worst aspects of the industry, it's a symptom of greed and laziness, and the only cure is to use your voice, however quiet, to demand better. This is not the fault of any set developer or team. I doubt anyone working in the industry wants to make a bad game. This isn't some grand conspiracy. It's the fault of a shared culture wherein we don't uplift our successes and incessantly whine about our failings instead of providing constructive and legitimate, legible analysis.
That's what I'm saying. There's so much just hate. There's so much just hate. Like, just state your opinion, but why do we feel so strongly about so many different things that we have to hate on it all the time? That doesn't make sense.
There needs to be less incentive for the bare minimum and more incentive to try. So yeah, I've been Rat, and I'm leaving you with the homework to go and glaze that hidden gem you've had in the Steam library for the last few years, to finish that dream project, to be a positive force within the art and the community.
Yeah, what a good video. I'll give it a like. That was a great video. Alright. We got the next stream coming up, or the next video up next. All right. Yeah, we'll get the next video coming up here in like a minute or so. It won't be very long. But I'm gonna go to the bathroom and get myself some water, and I'll be right back. Chat, great video, great video. All right, we are back. So, next video. We have the second screen theory. Very curious about this. We'll see how this is.
So, Stranger Things just ended, and of all the problems that people had with the show, one of the biggest ones that I couldn't get past is probably the unnecessary exposition.
We'll see how this is.
So, Stranger Things.
Alright, cool. Had to make sure y'all could hear it.
Cut our losses.
So, Stranger Things just ended, and of all the problems that people had with the show, one of the biggest ones that I couldn't get past is probably the unnecessary exposition.
Cut our losses. Fortune favors the bold.
I know Stranger Things is guilty of doing this, but hey,
and everything works out. That's what's crazy. And everything just so happens to work out. No, that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen where it just all works out.
the amount that we got in this season, it's not normal.
Okay.
Like every 10 minutes, someone had some altering realization about something that's like, oh shit, this all makes sense now. Whereas in the other seasons, it was like, this might work, and then it didn't work, and then they tried something else, and then that worked, and then they learned, and they actually learned throughout the show. You didn't learn shit. They just had a lot of aha moments that just ended up making sense.
Okay.
And they all worked. Bullshit.
Every flippin' thing was over-explained beyond reason.
This is Derek.
This.
I think there was like one thing in the last season that didn't work.
Of course. Is Max.
This bike bell is the bomb's remote trigger.
But then you ask, why? Because I feel like there's a bigger problem here, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because if you really look into it, it's not just Stranger Things. It's happening all over pop culture. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the second screen theory. So let's go back to Stranger Things. When you heard this dialogue for the first time, did you instantly feel that something was off, that they were overdoing it? Because for me, it took some time to realize how
I think I saw a TikTok about it. They say the word this so much. Like it's trying to goad you into watching it. You know, they say this thing or look at this so much.
Annoying it was that every single plan was being explained the same. Different characters, different props, but the same style. And that's when I felt like they were treating me like a child. And therein lies the issue. Platforms like Netflix are so guilty of writing casual content that you don't realize how much of it has infiltrated your screen until something like this happens to your favorite.
Red Notice, hot take, Red Notice, good movie. I enjoyed watching it. I think it came out right before the enshittification of Netflix, which is a whole nother thing.
Shows. Casual viewing, or visual ambience as some people creatively call it, is not really anything new. Think about primetime TV shows and teleserials. They're all filled with casual content, episodes that don't really matter to the overall plot. They are fillers that people can quite frankly not watch.
To be fair, every bit of media is gonna have filler content. You're gonna have filler content no matter what.
And still understand the story. But this usually doesn't impact the quality of a product. I can think of a lot of episodes from Friends which are not particularly that memorable, but as an overall show, as a product, it is one of the best. But the new version of this casual viewing is something else. It's a problem that is destroying the art of cinema.
Yeah. Casual viewing has kind of naturally developed. It's kind of evolved into being... Casual viewing has become... You walk in a room, you watch for a few seconds, and then maybe you'll figure out what's going on, and then you don't need to watch anymore for the next 15 minutes because you're probably doing something else or scrolling on your phone.
They're all unconscious. What happens when Vecna captures you?
So ask yourself the question, why would Robin say this? Because if you know Stranger Things so far, this is yourself the question, why?
What happens when Vecna captures you?
So ask yourself the question, why would Robin say this? Because if you know Stranger Things so far, this is something that you could easily imply, and everyone would know it. You don't.
Yeah, I do understand how you can get the idea that, oh, well, she wasn't there, she doesn't know. They're all friends, broski. They're all friends. You mean to tell me they told each other nothing? You didn't tell your friends anything? You got captured by this basically a demigod. Not really a demigod, but like a superhuman is a better way to put it. And you didn't explain anything? I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
Don't have to physically say it. This doesn't need to be dialogue. And the exposition goes on.
Like a Whitney Houston high note.
Robin explains the whole concept.
What if their minds are all in the same place?
And then to reaffirm, we get this from Mike.
And they'll have been in Vecna's mind. Literally.
They'll know everything. I mean, they'll know where Will is.
Where the kids are.
They might even know what he's planning.
Without giving the audience a chance.
I feel like the audience could have pieced that together. Or make it more vague so then you don't already know what's going on. If you don't already know what's going on, then you're intrigued to watch more. But if you know what's going on, tough. I don't need to watch it anymore.
To come to the conclusions, they explain every little detail of this abstract idea. And at first, I thought this was Stranger Things doing its thing. But it's not. They wrote this piece of dialogue for the casual audience. In other words, for the second screen.
Are now making a prison.
You see, this whole scene could easily not exist. You could integrate this exposition into the plot as a visual narrative, and people could figure things out as it goes, and you don't need the verbal info dump to make sense of it. But that's only if you're watching the show intently. But based on the consumer studies and behavioral patterns of the streaming audience, the majority of people are casual viewers, people who are multitasking while consuming content. And platforms like Netflix are more than aware of this. And so, they design content based on this framework. In an interview by The Hollywood Reporter, Justine Bateman described how the showrunners are starting to play into this trend. I've heard from showrunners.
Yeah, Netflix, I think, is the most guilty. I think Netflix is the most guilty of this. Hulu, you can't really say much because they have live TV. Live TV is its own category, in my opinion. Disney's always going to make at least decent content. It's never really going to be bad content. You'll have good movies and bad movies, but it's all relative. It'll still all be fine to watch. But Netflix, almost half, I would go so far as to say that half of Netflix you could understand by just listening. You don't need to watch anything. You don't need to actually watch it.
Who are given notes from the streamers that this isn't second screen enough, meaning the viewer's primary screen is their phone and the laptop, and they don't.
That's what I'm saying, and I'm guilty of this, but I hate that I do this. I will turn something on and then I'll get on my phone, and it pisses me off that I do this and that I'm guilty of it, because I don't want to do that. I want to watch the thing that I'm watching, but I'm like brain rotted at this point, and I'm trying to unrot my brain.
Don't want anything on your show to distract them from their primary screen, because if they.
But if you distract it, then it makes sense. If you distract it, well then, holy shit, you actually have a viewer. That's how it works. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I'll die on this hill. Make it good enough to watch, and then people don't need a second screen. God.
They get distracted. They might look up, be confused, and go turn it off. And this is basically why you get descriptive dialogue like,
but that's why you have a hook at the beginning. Because at the beginning, that's when you start watching it. Make it interesting at the start so that I want to watch it. It's not a hard concept to me, but it is. It shouldn't be. Sorry.
We don't stop until we're goddamn sure that wrinkled, noseless, rotting bastard is dead and gone and never coming back.
She's been training for this, and she's not alone. She's got Kali and Max, and I'm sure Henry's dead, and if he's not, he will be.
This is not how normal people talk, but to make sure the ambient audience gets the best experience possible, they explain everything like you're 5 years old. Now imagine if you were multitasking and this scene was not exposition. As you are casually shifting attention between your phone and the show, you would constantly miss a lot of visual cues and you lose the narrative flow, and to understand what's going on, you would have to rewind and play the scene again.
And that is what will make me turn it off faster. I will turn off a show if I'm on my phone and I don't know what's happening and I have to rewind it a bunch. And I know that's kind of on me. That's kind of my fault that I'm on my phone to begin with. But if you made it interesting at the start, then I'll be watching it. I'll gladly watch it and I won't be on my phone.
And that's given if the casual viewer didn't lose interest. But if you repeat an important narrative just enough, over-explain key aspects of the plot through exposition and lore dumps, you can keep most of your audience watching without them being immersed into the story.
It also increases the likelihood that the viewer will catch that exposition. So then, by proxy, you're more likely to understand what's happening than not by even just listening to it, even if you don't visually see it. But if you tune in, having that much exposition and explaining it so many times, you're more likely to keep people.
And that's exactly the majority of content on streaming platforms. Apart from some well-known exceptions, they're not exactly that different from online content farms. Most of these platforms have pretty generic titles that are designed for casual algorithmic viewing, and they're dumbing down the stories and flattening genres to appeal to the general view.
Addison Rae, Tanner Buchanan, oof, sorry. Dude, I didn't know Addison Rae got dipped into acting. I was wondering where she went. Man, that looks like shit. Respectfully, but it looks like it's not a good movie.
And they're dumbing down the stories and flattening.
Not that any of those do, but that specifically out of those three, that's the last one I'd pick.
Genres to appeal to the general audience. And this is snowballing into a massive problem.
The standard way to make an action movie that we learned was, you usually have like 3 set pieces. They kind of ramp up, and the big one with all the explosions, and you spend most of your money on that one in the third act. And now they're like, can we get a big one in the first 5 minutes to get somebody? We want people to stay. And it wouldn't be terrible if you reiterated the plot 3 or 4 times in the dialogue because people are on their phones.
As Will Tavlin, a critic,
I just feel like that takes away from the storytelling. Like, would that not just take away from it? And then what's the point? What's the point of making the movie? It won't be as emotional. It doesn't mean as much.
Wrote in his candid criticism of Netflix. In the early 1900s, studios like Warner Brothers were producing 70 movies per year. And in the 90s, this is exactly what Miramax were doing. But he points out that the difference between Netflix and these studios is that the latter had a business model that rewarded cinematic craft. So if you made a good film, more people would go and watch it, and the more profit that you make on it. But if you made a bad movie, there were consequences. It was a straightforward model that made sure the studios strived for perfection. But Netflix doesn't work like that. Since you are paying for everything, including...
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different when you have... It's definitely different to have a subscription model than it is to have, okay, you just go see this movie. Because if you just go see this movie, then they're basically paying the theater and you're paying the creator, like the creative team and everyone behind it directly. But however much a Netflix movie is going to make is entirely based on how many subscribers they have, which I guess is kind of how YouTube works. You know, if you don't have a lot of subscribers, you're not going to make a lot of money. But where's the incentive for good movies? If you're guaranteed to be paid this money because we already have this money in this vault behind me, well then there's no consequence. You can just put out unnecessary slop, unnecessary shit for no reason. Besides to say, oh, we have this on our site. Again, Red Notice, low-key, good movie. Maybe good is a bit overstating it, but I have respect for the movie and I would watch it multiple times. Saw only a little bit of this marketing. That was it. Never really saw much. Oh, I didn't show the thing. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna go back. That's it.
And with all the hype surrounding it, they just need the content. Look at what happened to The Electric State. This was a movie.
Yeah, I didn't see much marketing for this though. I didn't. I saw a little bit when I would open Netflix, but if I didn't open Netflix, I didn't really care. And it was marketed as being similar to, what was it? Ready Player One? That's a good movie. But I didn't see anything related to this movie that I would even remotely care about.
They had a $300 million budget.
Or get me interested in it. There was nothing that made it interesting to me besides, what the hell does The Electric State mean?
And with all the hype surrounding it, you'd think that...
Oh, and Chris Pratt's there. Of course! Let's get Chris Pratt.
...had an intention to do well. Well, if you're spending that much money, you'd better hope so. But if you know anything about the book the movie was adapted from, yeah, it was nothing like it at all. Not only did it fail to capture the true meaning of the original story, but it failed as a movie in general. It was one of the biggest flops of 2025. But this is the problem with a platform like Netflix. Even though this was a significant portion of their annual budget, they just brushed it off like it was nothing and moved on from it. And the thing is, there is no way of knowing how much Netflix lost on this project. Because the way a streaming platform functions, this cannot be a John Carter. There is no public shame for the studio because we don't even know how much they lost from this.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. If it's based on subscribers, that's fine, but there's no motivation at all for anybody to even want to make it a good movie. $320 million. That's pocket change for Netflix. Are you kidding me? They made that shit because they wanted to. They could have just made it that much money because they wanted to, or for notoriety. They probably didn't, but they could have. But there's no incentive for a good movie if it doesn't go to theaters. And I'll die on this hill. I don't care. It's true.
But the way streaming works, you probably didn't enjoy The Electric State, clicked off of it, but to fill up that time, you probably clicked on another.
It's a lot like YouTube. Like I was saying, it's a lot like YouTube. You can put out whatever the hell you want on YouTube. You could make the shittiest stuff you wanted. It doesn't matter. You can make whatever the fuck you wanted. But you have to choose to make it good, and that's what does popular. That's what does well on YouTube. But you can't put out just slop and expect it to do well. You just can't. And I'm not saying that I create great content, but I'm also new. I want to make good content. But not everyone's like that. Some people just want to make content because they want to make content. And fair enough if that's how you are. But I don't know. What's the point? Like, what's the point of making a good piece of media?
To fill up that time, you probably clicked on another title anyway, meaning indirectly, you made a conscious decision that makes sure that you keep your subscription for the next month. So for Netflix, even though they released a horrendous movie, it doesn't really bother them. But all of this to say...
No, because they'll make it all back. It may not be right away, but they'll make it all back pretty quickly.
Streaming is contentifying cinema. And if you look at the way some of your favorite shows and movies on these platforms are being structured, you'll be amazed to see how much of them resemble social media content. For second screen viewing, you don't just need a few narrative hooks, you need a lot of them. Because you don't want someone's attention to dwindle while they're on their phones. Whenever the casual viewer looks at the screen, it better not be boring. Although narrative hooks have been part of visual storytelling since the beginning.
Like, yeah, but there's also nothing wrong with having a really good opening and then developing it from there. Yeah, you're gonna have exposition, but you don't need a million moments. You don't. I'll watch it. If it's good, if you have me hooked, I'll get engrossed in the story. I'll even get into the like the world building. It takes a lot more for me to be able to do that, but I'll do it.
Streaming has made sure that it is perceptibly constant. While watching the 6th episode of season 5, I became incredibly aware of the fact that we were getting these mini stories with mini cliffhangers and intense music every few minutes. And it literally moves on from one thing to the next on a hook.
It felt like it was supposed to have commercials. That's what it felt like.
And by the time the episode takes a breath to calm things down a bit, we're almost 30 minutes in.
Santa Claus has good taste.
And not to say that this was definitely structured for the second screen viewer, but even if you look at things like average shot length and narrative pacing, you'd find that every season has been getting slightly faster in pacing and shorter in shot length. And then
I think that also might have to do with the I think that might also have to do with how, what am I trying to say? How much CGI there is. I think it might have something to do with that as well. And I say that because if you have a lot of CGI, you can hide a lot of insecurities, not insecurities, but imperfections in darkness and in quick camera shots. You can hide it in those. And with that being said, with the story progressing big and bigger and bigger and bigger, you need more VFX shots. You need more of that stuff. But it's harder to sell it because people have gotten so good at noticing what is CGI and what isn't, you know? And I feel like CGI has gotten ironically worse to some extent, but I won't get into that.
We have the simplified dialogue. This one's almost certain at this point, judging by how impossible it is to unhear it.
I admit it was a beautiful day, filled with dramatic vistas and romantic rain. But that doesn't give you the right to question my life choices. Tomorrow, I'm marrying Paul Kennedy.
This is not how people speak, but to make sure the second screen viewer doesn't get...
I do also want it to be known, I do have Netflix. I do pay for Netflix. I do support Netflix. I think that Netflix can be pretty good. I'm watching a little bit of anime. I've never really watched anime, but I'm watching it now on Netflix. This is not me just shitting on Netflix. I want to make that clear.
Confused too.
Let me save my branding a little bit.
Too much. They mention every key aspect of a narrative or the plot, almost like they're summarizing. So if you haven't been watching so far, so and so has happened, and because of that, we are going to be doing so and so. And I don't think I have to specify that this doesn't make for good dialogue. It speaks for itself. It might be good for a YouTube video or an essay, but not for creative storytelling. And then we get to the visuals. It's not surprising, now that I think about it, that the colors of Stranger Things have considerably gone punchier and saturated over the seasons. I even made a video on how colors and lighting ensures that the first season is grounded in reality. It's a visually relatable season because of how much alike the visuals are to traditional cinema. But now it seems to be different, not just the...
It's also just a lot more realistic to just life as well. You could just say that. The color palette in the early seasons was realistic, like you said. It worked in real world, and that's why it was, whoa, holy fuck. But that's why it worked, because it looked real. That's why it was somewhat freaky to me. Personally, Stranger Things did kind of freak me out at first. It did. It was creepy. It was everything that it needed to be, and it was awesome. But then it ventured too far out of reality. I liked when it was grounded, when it was in reality and it looked real, it felt real, and it was like, man, this is so fucked up. What would I do if I was in this situation? It also does help when the budget is lower, because when the budget is lower, they have to use more practical shots. They just do. They have to use real shots and then add stuff into it. It's not all green screen. But when you get to the later seasons, so much green screen. Green screen is everywhere. As soon as you get to season, I'd say season 3 had a little bit, but then season 4 or 5 was just nothing but green screen footage for the most part.
To have visual clarity, quite literally, they lit the scenes in a way to create flat, dispersed imagery with noticeable color separation. It's similar to game designs, where the player has to see everything on the screen to be able to interact with it. And these flashy colors are telling the casual audience to look up at the screen. And the final design that plays into the second screen theory is in fact binging. And even though this is the most glaring one of them all, it is also the most sneakiest. Although cliffhangers are part and parcel of visual storytelling, especially in a series, it's almost accepted on streaming.
Always working to keep pets healthy.
It's crazy how almost every episode of a series makes sure that it ends on a high uncertainty. It's like clockwork. It is enticing, something that makes sure you click on the next episode. Now, if you were the second screen viewer, this would pique your attention at the exact moment when the streamer wants you to look at the screen. It doesn't matter how much you were paying attention throughout the episode, but now that you're about to end the episode, they want to create a...
It's almost like they want you to tune in for the start of the next episode, just so that they say that, yeah, you watched this episode, or this had this many views. Views does not matter. Views do not matter. Watch time matters. Watch time matters. But publicly, PR wise, they'll probably, I bet somewhere they're eating it up how many people viewed each episode.
Sense of intrigue so that your brain tells you, I want to see what happens next. And then you turn the next episode into visual noise and the cycle progresses. But if you have noticed something with these design elements, it seems like you're on the right track. Because am I kidding myself? Or isn't this the exact way to cater to social media? If someone gave you advice on how to get better on YouTube, isn't this the sort of advice they'll give you? Bright thumbnails, constant hooks, visual clarity. This is the...
Yeah, and it's not real. I've gotten feedback like this from people who are honestly in the same range as me on YouTube and streaming and stuff with almost no subscribers. But like, I would rather cultivate an audience that comes for the content, that like just wants to watch me. You know, that's it. I personally don't care to make good thumbnails all that much. I care to make interesting thumbnails, things that I would probably click on. But my thumbnails are not the best. They're lazy. They're straightforward. But yeah, a thumbnail is important. But if you go too hard into it, you're going to attract the wrong audience that you don't want.
Same formula that you apply for making better content. Not cinema, but content. And then again, why does it all matter? Why does it matter that you have to pay attention to the screen? Why does it matter that Netflix designs their shows like TikToks? Why do I care if I'm enjoying the experience anyway?
Is that true? Could you put a lot of Netflix shows into a vertical viewing format and it would still work perfectly fine? Could you do that? Because if you can, that's funny. That's so funny if you can do that.
Well, it's simple. If I'm paying money for something, I just want the best possible experience. I have read The Electric State. It is a beautiful visual novel. But if you are spending the net worth of an entire country to adapt it into a film, at least make sure you get it right. Ensure it doesn't turn into slop that people forget in a couple of weeks and gets buried somewhere in the algorithm. And I'm not saying that all shows and movies on a platform like Netflix are completely designed with these rigid second screen viewing directives. With certain shows, you can clearly tell how much creative control the filmmakers had. But with the final season of Stranger Things, I couldn't help but compare it to mass content that is designed for marketability rather than actual storytelling. There's content and there's cinema. They are not the same, but the more oversimplified.
And that's what it hinges on. This is actually a very good point. That's what it hinges on. It hinges on the fact that content and cinema are not the same thing. You don't need content to fill out Netflix. Netflix could be successful if they just made cinema, but they don't make cinema. They try and just add content, and so it just doesn't work. No one cares to watch it.
Movies get, the more oversimplified visual stories get, the more indistinguishable they become from content. They become second screen experiences that don't require any kind of active viewing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you destroy the art of cinema. And no one wants to see that. And I'll see you in the next video.
Great video. Great video. Awesome video. I do think that the second screen theory is a big deal. Not necessarily a big deal, but it's definitely a big deal. All right, let's get one more. All right. Yeah, let's get one more. I watched some of this.
I haven't been to the grocery store
Watched
in
like the
months
first like
because
5
this
minutes, and then I was like, I
delivery
want to
service
watch it on
offers hundreds
stream.
of high-quality, non-GMO
This success.
If you are listening to the cylinder.
One thing you should never say to a Scrap Mechanic fan is to be patient. Why? Well, it's not because they lack any. No, it's because they've been spending it for years. You might remember.
I actually have this game. Haven't ever played it. Have not played it. They just had a big update. When was this put out? 2 weeks ago? Dude, that's crazy. I think they had a big update like right after this video came out.
Remember seeing this game at some point back in 2020 with all the hype surrounding its long-awaited survival mode. Maybe even earlier in 2016 when it was just a creative sandbox. But as the years went on, the update slowed down and so did communication. The last dev blog as of recording was back in...
and this is what happened to Scrap Mechanic. Sorry. What happened to Scrap Mechanic?
December 2025, after a year of nothing else, saying that a release date out of early access will be announced in the coming months. Will it be the 6th month? Will it be the 8th month? Who knows? All we got after the 3rd was a hotfix that simply said, fixed a security issue, with the top comment in response to that saying, lol, release chapter 2. A chapter that has been more than 6 years in the making. So long, in fact, that as I was reading this part of the script, I just saw that somebody released a workshop item titled Hopium Tower that was apparently inspired by the Hopium tanker. Yeah,
that's so funny. Oh my gosh, I love the internet sometimes. That's hilarious.
Regardless of how long it's been since any significant update, there is still player activity and the reviews remain very positive for good reason. Make no mistake, it's not a bad game. But as you look closer, you can start to see the old age question.
It's not that the game is bad, it's that you hype it up and then you don't do it. I'm guilty of this. I'll hype up that I'm gonna go live sometimes and then I just don't feel like doing it. I'm guilty of it. But like, a game that is successful, that's crazy. Why would you not want to do that? If I was ever successful at making a game or doing this YouTube thing or doing streaming or anything like that, if I ever did that and got successful, I would want to do it all the time because I do at the end of the day love doing it.
Beginning to be answered, and that is, how long is too long in early access or just waiting for an update?
I think early access is sometimes used as a means to say we know it's broken, but we're basically putting out a full game and then it never leaves early access. Aren't they on version like 1.2 but it still says early access? I don't understand that.
It's a subjective question that highly depends on the game and community behind it, and for Scrap Mechanic, with many players who have spent many hours playing it, you can start to see the frustration come through. Even in the positive reviews, people are hoping that this next big update comes sooner rather than much later, because it's been in development for 10 years already, so...
I feel like you would just forget about the game. Like, you would just move on, and then randomly... Well, I guess, just like you said, 10 years later, you're like, maybe I'll go back to this game. And then you see that they have more content. Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe it's the idea that if you wait so long that people forget and then you bring it back, it's a, oh shit. And then it gets hype. When that works, that's fine. You see it a lot with music and artists.
Why and what's going on? Like all things Swedish, the story begins in Stockholm, with a pack of pure radiation, where Pontus Holmborn and Casper Antonius finished working on a Minecraft prototype build for the Xbox 360. Their time doing this between 2011 and 2012 resulted in two things: inspiration for their own survival crafting game and the formation of Axolot Games, who, as we'll see later, also became the publishers for Raft. Scrap Mechanic, as you've seen so far.
They published Raft? I forgot about this. I kind of just put all information in this video aside because I wanted to rewatch it for stream. That's hilarious. Going from Raft, that big success, and then this. Not that this isn't a success.
Far from all, the B-roll is an engineering game more so than a block building one. It's all about making vehicles to overcome a challenge or provide a more effective solution to a problem. We've already covered Hello Engineer prior to this video, and a lot of people said that it looked like a worse version of Scrap Mechanic, so to be honest with you, that explains why we're here. But development for Scrap Mechanic actually started.
I did think that when I did look into Hello Engineer, I wanted to play it for a second, but then I'm like, this looks like Scrap Mechanic. I already own Scrap Mechanic. I spent money on Scrap Mechanic. What's the point of... Why would I spend money on another game that's the exact same thing?
Started sometime in 2012. It was just a two-man crew funding the game out of their own pockets for a bit before.
Those assets look really familiar. That's about how Minecraft would look with wheels.
For securing some funding from an undisclosed angel investor. This funding, of course, helped them to focus on putting something together that would actually form the foundation of the game. And it wasn't until the 31st of October 2014 when they released the debut trailer, a 1.5 minute long video showing off a vibrant cartoonish world to explore and survive in, with wacky crafts at the mercy of physics and vehicles that transform in a way that would get anyone who's remotely into engineering type games excited. The vibe, the music, and
yeah, the entirety of the trailer looked great. It looked fun. It looked interesting. But they kind of did. They didn't do much.
All round.
I want to watch a different video. We're gonna change this. No one's watching. I'm gonna take advantage of it. Nah, we'll keep watching it. It's fine.
Looked and felt good. There was something special here and worth looking forward to. Shortly after the trailer, they successfully got the game greenlit on Steam in November, and from this point onwards, their first main objective was to simply get it ready for early access. In an article interviewing the devs, they were asked for some advice about indie game dev, and marketing came up as a result, saying that they often saw developers mess up on marketing, where they basically slapped it on their game instead of integrating it into the process and thinking about how to create an emotional connection with potential players along the way.
That makes sense. This is everything that I was talking about in the how lore ruins video games reaction. You want to add lore and stuff, but make the game interesting. Market the game. And then you do this. And then you put out the game, and then people are like, oh shit, there's lore. Oh shit, this is interesting.
If you ever needed an example of being too relaxed with marketing, then the Skyrim clone video has got you covered. Axolot's approach to marketing was to simply show off new things that they were working on in dev blogs with the odd video on YouTube. Even though updates weren't always that frequent on their website, they would still stay quite active on social media to keep the hype going and to grow their audience. One small thing to note is that the earlier videos they released always had some comedy to them. It felt down to earth and the presentation was never dry. This is important to know because when it comes to bringing the game and new elements forward to the public, they did so in a way that welcomes people to the world of possibilities.
And it seems like they made it make sense. You could go into it and generally know what you're doing for the most part. It's not like, yeah, you're gonna go in blind, but you'll have this memory of it where you're like, oh, what if I do this thing? What if I try this? And then it works. And then you're like, right, it makes sense. See, like this video he's referencing, how to play. That's so straightforward. That makes sense.
And when it comes to a niche like this, that's what gets people excited. Granted, they had a good concept to start with already, but you can see the positive energy as a result in the comments. The time between the debut trailer in 2014 and early access was about a year and 3 months. 2015 kicked off strong in January with the showcase of their first major addition, The Lift. a tool that basically allows you to engineer things from all angles like an actual mechanic. And the stuff that you make with it isn't fixed in place to the ground. Even by this point in development, they made it possible for you to use the lift as a tool to pick up your builds and place them anywhere. From the very beginning, you
Oh, I forgot I had this video. I really want to watch this. We're gonna watch this.
I needed to consult the classics. The Art of War, very be on sale for
The Art of War?
Are Jack Black, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Ryan Reynolds
Alright. This video. They're not acting, they're just famous. Let's get into it.
Are Jack Black, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Ryan Reynolds actually acting? Or are they just playing slightly adjusted versions of themselves in every single movie that they're in? That's the question that we're going to attempt to answer in this video. This isn't about talent, this isn't a personal attack or anything.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
No, all three of them are incredibly talented and successful and charismatic and funny and all of...
But they all do play the same roles in every movie almost. And then you have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Moana. Whoa. I can't get past Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson with hair. That's so funny to me. That is so funny to me.
Those lovely things. It's about something more specific, something more sacred. The craft.
That's where the craft is.
Acting isn't just about being likable on screen. It's about the actor transforming themselves into somebody else for a couple of hours.
Dude, Gary Oldman. So fucking good. So good.
And that's where we need to draw the line. Great actors are able to strip away their own personalities and instincts and create someone new from the inside out. Their posture, vocal rhythm, breathing, physical tics, emotional accessibility, every detail is customized for that specific character. Sometimes that transformation is subtle, sometimes it's dramatic, but in either case the actor disappears and the character...
Samuel L. Jackson is a weird one though. Because I feel like he does sometimes play people adjacent to him, but Nick Fury is not. I feel like it's more of a typecast. I feel like we're getting more into the discussion of a typecast than anything else. Meaning, a typecast being you casted this person with the intent that they would because you cast it. Sorry, let me start this over. A typecast means, in my opinion, that like, all right, this actor is really good at playing this kind of role. I'm going to cast them. It's not that it's who they are necessarily. I don't believe that Samuel L. Jackson is Nick Fury on a day-to-day basis necessarily, but he's good at playing that type of role. You know what I mean?
Lives. Now Jack Black is basically a human firework. He's loud, he's colourful, he's unpredictable, and he's also very entertaining. But from an acting perspective, he rarely steps outside of his own orbit. His screen presence is undeniably magnetic, but it's also very consistent. And let's talk about School of Rock, which is arguably peak Jack Black. And honestly, it's really good. He plays Dewey Finn, a washed-up rocker, who fakes his way into a teaching job and inspires a group of private school kids to form a band. But here's the thing, Dewey is...
But it's still so Jack Black. I think it's probably his most normal. Like, not his most normal. I shouldn't say that. But I think it's his most what's the word? It's his most different cast, is what I'm trying to say.
Jack Black. The role doesn't challenge him to stretch emotionally or psychologically. It's not a transformation, it's a delivery system for Jack Black's natural state of being, which is frantic, funny, and musically gifted. His physicality is textbook Jack Black. The flailing limbs, the sudden squats, the
Love Jack Black though. I would watch so many Jack Black movies. There's a lot of them that I would fully be willing to watch.
Unexpected pelvic thrusts.
What?
He's always acting like a cartoon character with a stage presence. There's little to no internal conflict. He doesn't undergo a deep change. He just gets slightly more responsible.
He more impacts the characters around him. He won't change. He won't change in the duration of the movie or whatever you're watching. But he will influence the other characters, not the other actors, the other characters.
By the end of the film. Now fast forward to Minecraft and not much has changed. In the Minecraft movie, Jack Black plays a live action Steve. He's a character who in the game is famously a blank canvas. He could have been depicted as a tortured survivor or even a builder with a mysterious past.
But he was just Steve. He wasn't anything more. He was just Steve. That's it.
Was a great opportunity to allow for creativity, nuance, and invention. Instead, we get Jack Black just doing Jack Black things. Expressive eyebrows, chaotic limbs, exaggerated line deliveries.
I am Steve.
There's no character arc, there's no emotional layers, there's no shift in tone or pace or behaviour. Just the same chaotic energy we've seen time and time again in every other film that he's been in. And the thing is, it's not about volume. Robin Williams was loud, Jim Carrey is loud, but the difference is range. Robin Williams, for example, could shift from completely unhinged like he was in Aladdin to really restrained like he was in Good Will Hunting. In that movie, Robin Williams plays Sean Maguire. He's a soft-spoken therapist who's carrying the weight of grief, disappointment, and emotional restraint. Like when Sean Maguire...
Rest in peace. Honestly, rest in peace. He was so good. I wasn't around for most of his acting tenure at his peak, but love Robin Williams. Love me a good Robin Williams story.
Talks about his late wife. There's no sobbing, there's no dramatic music cue, there's just this quiet look downward, a brief pause, a flicker in his voice. He lets the silence speak. And that's what acting is really, letting the truth sneak through the cracks. Robin Williams was a master of modulation. He just had this knack for knowing when to unleash his comedic instincts and when to bottle them up into something more grounded, more human. You see, that's decades of refining technique. While Jack Black is always Jack Black. He never shifts gears in his acting performances. It's not a lack of talent, it's a lack of variety. And when we talk about real acting, the kind that disappears, that challenges, that transforms one person into another, that's the one ingredient you can't do without. And now moving on to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who...
Maybe I misspoke earlier. Because now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, typecasting is kind of like this. You cast someone because you need them to fit a role, a very specific one at that. So, like, for Black Adam, good example, you cast Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I think that Black Adam could have been a lot more people than just Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but it makes sense that they picked him.
Is perhaps the most predictable actor in Hollywood, and I do say that with complete respect for his work ethic and screen.
Well, it also doesn't help that he can't die contractually in his movies. In his contract, this is publicly known. I don't know if it's still true, but for the longest time, he had to win. He could not lose in the overarching story of whatever media he's in. He has to win. To some extent, he has to win.
Screen presence. He typically plays alpha male protector types. His characters are always bulletproof and they very rarely show any sort of vulnerability. For example, in the Baywatch movie, Dwayne Johnson plays...
You could blame Fast and Furious for a lot of this. You know, you play this character for so long that I feel like you get hauled into that kind of cast. It's like Marvel movie people. Like Marvel actors. it's like them. They play this long-winded role over a decade and a half. And then that's all they're known for. So people don't realize how much range they actually have. And then when they're put in that situation, it's kind of sink or swim. But they're almost never put in that situation. Like, when was the last time, I mean, I'm not too online, but when was the last time that Scarlett Johansson put out like a really super emotional tale? Could be wrong, but I don't remember the last time. Scarlett Johansson movies. Yeah, like Jurassic World. That's basically the same thing. Let's see. Like, I know that she does have other things. I just don't know it.
You would expect. He's got the dad jokes, he's got the swagger, and he's got this amazing confidence.
Huge dick. Big dick.
But the thing is, Mitch never really actually feels like a real person. There's no introspection, there's no emotional development. He's got the dad jokes, he's got the swagger, and he's got this amazing confidence.
Huge. Love this movie. Love this movie. This movie is awesome. Maybe I'm glazing it. I haven't watched it in a very long time. But what a good movie. Sorry, wrong usage of the word good. I should specify. Entertaining is the better word for me to use. Entertaining, that's how I would describe it.
Dick. Big dick.
But the thing is, Mitch never really actually feels like a real person. There's no introspection, there's no emotional development with his character. Even when he's fired and humiliated or struggling with his team, he handles everything with the same cocky resilience. No matter.
I mean, but do you really need him? Do you need him to fill a different role? You cast him for this alpha male, I'm big, I have big titties. He's gonna act that way. You're asking him to, you know, but whatever.
To the situation, the character always behaves the same. And again, in the film Red Notice, surprise, surprise.
Also a pretty good movie. I do like Red Notice. I also just like Ryan Reynolds.
He plays an authoritative figure with a shady past. And once again, he brings exactly the same flavour, a cocky smile, a raised eyebrow, and a brooding silence that never translates into any vulnerability. He doesn't play men with wounds, he plays avatars of strength. And that makes him reliable, sure, but that doesn't make him transformative. Now look at someone like Hugh Jackman, who is somewhat known for his physicality. He's tall, he's broad, he's absolutely ripped.
Yeah, but basing it on physicality, I mean, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson does some physical shit. Now, they'll put him in a superhuman scenario where he's holding a helicopter up by his pinky. You know, they'll have him like fucking full erection holding a damn boulder off a cliff by a tightrope around his penis. They'll do it. They'll do it. He can't lose. It's in his contract. He can't lose. So there is no need for transformation in him. I love Dwayne Johnson, though.
And he's handsome.
It's just you gotta be in the mood to watch a Dwayne Johnson movie.
Physicality. He's tall, he's broad, he's absolutely ripped, and he's handsome.
I am soaking wet right now.
But what he does in acting couldn't be any more different. The voice changes, the posture changes, the pace of his speech shifts based on the character's confidence, class, or psychological state. I think it's fair to say that when most people think of Hugh Jackman, they think of Wolverine. I mean, he has played the character for over 20 years. Wolverine is a character defined by raw masculinity, trauma, and animalistic rage. But over time, that went deeper. In his final Logan movie, he plays the same character we've known, but he's older.
Haven't seen Logan, want to watch it, know that it's emotional, know that it's good. I like a consistent story. So when those came out, yes, it was a story within the X-Men, but I was already engrossed in the MCU at the time, because that was also when the MCU was peaking. The MCU was peaking when Logan came out, I believe. When did Logan come out? When did that come out? Logan release. March 3rd, 2017. Yeah. So then 2017 Marvel. Yeah, Guardians 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok. Peak moment for the MCU in my opinion. So didn't have the brain space to really watch it. Wanted to.
Broken, quieter. His physicality changes, a slumped posture, labored breathing. His voice is raspier. The emotional register is lower.
Oh, you can watch it now. Shut up.
Weighed down by all the things that he's lost. The pain is embodied, not just referenced. And Hugh Jackman has so much range as well. If you watch him in The Greatest Showman, he's expressive, graceful, energized. His movement becomes theatrical and almost like a ballerina. His voice has completely changed.
Didn't he cheat on his wife in that movie? Not like his real wife. No, I'm not saying that. But doesn't Barnum cheat on his wife at one point or something? I could be wrong. Maybe the whole crux was that he didn't, but he could have. But I feel like I remember seeing that he does. Could be wrong though.
He sings in full Broadway projection. It's amazing. Even in the movie Eddie the Eagle, Hugh Jackman plays a washed-up ski coach with a bit of humour, wariness, and just enough heart. The physicality is looser, more defeated. Every performance in every movie that he's in is fundamentally different. And now Dwayne Johnson is undeniably very entertaining. He's a complete titan of charisma and physical commitment, but his characters are essentially vehicles for his personality. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's not acting in the same sense that Hugh Jackman approaches the craft.
No, it's acting in the sense that Arnold Schwarzenegger did it. It's acting because you need someone to be a big guy. Like it's tangential to acting at best, but it's not really acting. It's how would this guy react in a situation like this? In this scenario, how would it happen? You have a superhuman. What would he do? Oh, well, he'd probably be Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He'd probably have big muscles. No, you're not going to have some fatty eating chips suddenly get thrown into some shit where he needs to save the world. That's not entertaining. I would find that entertaining. Just some confused dude looking around. Oh, what do I do? And then just fucking dies at the end, and then it's just a one-off story of nothing happening. I'd be here for that.
Dwayne Johnson refines a brand, Hugh Jackman reinvents his identity. And finally, let's finish with Ryan Reynolds. And like Jack Black and Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds is really good at what he does. Really, really good. He's got effortless comedic timing, impeccable facial control, and a kind of self-aware fourth wall breaking delivery that makes audiences feel like they're in on the joke. But is he really acting, or is he just performing a polished version of himself? In the movie Free Guy, Ryan Reynolds plays a non-playable character in a video game.
I think it's more of how would Ryan Reynolds be in this scenario? You know, let's say Ryan Reynolds was a superhero. He'd probably be Deadpool. You know, let's say Ryan Reynolds was some AI like in Free Guy who gained sentience. It'd probably happen like this. I think it's more of what would this person and their personality do if they were in this scenario. And I think that there's some talent to be said behind being able to do that. If you can remain yourself and act like you're in this scenario, I think there's merit to that. It's a different scale than Good Will Hunting Robin Williams. You know, it's a different scale than Gary Oldman Churchill or The Darkest Hour or whatever. It's a different scale. I would say that Ryan Reynolds has some emotion in his movies. I think he does. It may not be as deep, but he does.
Plays a non-playable character in a video game who becomes self-aware and starts living his best digital life. It's a clever concept, really, and his performance is, well, very Ryan Reynolds. The wide-eyed innocence, the confused charm, the sarcastic quips, even in moments of crisis. It's all very textbook Ryan Reynolds. What's missing is emotional variation. Even as the world around him crumbles or love is on the line, his reactions are always coated in comedic sugar. You could swap Guy out with Deadpool and the delivery would barely need any tweaking. And speaking of Deadpool, that was the role he was born to play. And that's possibly kind of the issue.
Agree.
Ryan Reynolds is Wade Wilson. The boundary between actor and character completely dissolved. It works because the tone of the film supports that kind of chaotic meta wink at the camera performance. But that performance never changes, not across the...
It just works out because that's who the character was already. You know, the character was already established to be that way. But when you cast someone, it's hard to be like, hey, be this other person that you're not used to being. You know, I know that's acting, but, you know, I get it. It makes sense logically.
First film, the sequel, or Deadpool and Wolverine. Wade goes through loss, rage, grief, betrayal, but emotionally Ryan Reynolds never dials it down or shifts any gears. Everything is wrapped in sarcasm and...
Yeah, the deep moments provide lore. They provide backstory. They provide stakes to it. Because without it, there's no stakes. What are the stakes to the ending of Deadpool if he didn't have a girlfriend? You know, if the girlfriend plotline wasn't a thing, would he really have all the same motivations? Probably not. You know, hell, he'd probably end up being a bad guy. And I guess that's just good storytelling. But I mean, I can't fault it. You know, I can't fault it.
Self-parody. The performance is full of energy and charm, but shallow in range. Now, if we compare Ryan Reynolds to Robert Downey Jr., this is where the comparison gets interesting. Like Ryan Reynolds, Robert Downey Jr. is often mistaken for just playing himself. His time as Tony Stark in the MCU has become so iconic that people begun to conflate the man with the role. Yes,
Robert Downey Jr. is not Tony Stark. That is acting. I feel that is acting, but that's not how Robert Downey Jr. is. I don't think. I mean, I don't know the guy, but it seems like it's more depth in the acting than anything else.
Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony
than the other people that have been brought up.
Stark is quippy and confident. It's quite easy to lump him in with Ryan Reynolds because their leading characters share a certain funny guy with trauma vibe. But over time, Robert Downey Jr. let Tony Stark evolve. He allowed moments of doubt, guilt, fear, and genuine grief to surface, not just through dialogue, but through tone, timing, and stillness. In Avengers Endgame, there's a weight to his silences. His face ages not from makeup, but from how he carries his regrets.
But you have more time to flesh that out. You know, in Robert Downey Jr., sorry, in Ryan Reynolds' case or in Dwayne Johnson's case, you know, they're frequently one-off movies. You know, I think that if they were a part of some really long story, I mean, we'll have to see how the Black Adam stuff ends up going, but I mean, DC seems like it's in a shitter right now. But like, I don't know. If you have more time to do it and to develop it, you can add in more of those nuances. But if you have 2 hours, 1 hour of screen time, because there's always 2 big actors. You know, it's Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart, or it's Alan Rickman and Kevin James, or there's a duo, there's a male duo or a male female duo in every hit movie and every big marketed movie. If you had more time to develop the story and the characters and stuff, there would be more cracks of this stuff. But they don't give the time because it's some one-off movie that they're hoping to make double figures on, or double their investment.
The comic mask cracks and you see the cost of all that confidence.
Cap, I got no coordinates, no clues, no strategies, no options, zero, zip, nada. No trust.
But you also, in the storyline, you reach a point where canonically and continuity-wise, they've already exhausted all their options. They really are out of options. Like, what do you even do that makes sense? You know, if you just keep going and you're like, yeah, they figured this out, they figured that out. Eventually, it stops being entertaining. Because then you're like, oh, they'll just get out of every situation. Oh, it's fine. They'll just get out of it. Oh, who cares? They'll be fine.
That's acting, that's transformation through subtle choices, not just lines. Whereas in Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr. completely flips the script.
Love Sherlock Holmes. I forgot about that movie just now. Oh my gosh. Discombobulate.
His Sherlock isn't just clever, he's twitchy, he's calculating, he's antisocial. He's also oddly delicate in his body language. He mumbles through deductions, paces like a caged animal. His physicality changes, his rhythm of speech.
But he acts like that person that you would imagine Sherlock to be. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Each accelerates or fragments depending on Sherlock's internal tempo. Compare that to Ryan Reynolds in any film. His delivery rarely deviates from his natural pace. Robert Downey Jr. uses pace as a tool. And then in Oppenheimer, the role that reminded everyone just how
Oppenheimer. What a good movie. Oh my god. My girlfriend won't watch it because she says that it's too long. Well, she'll probably watch it at some point, but such a good movie, oh my god.
Deep Robert Downey Jr. can go. As Lewis Strauss, he's calculating, he's political, and he's completely void of the Robert Downey Jr. charm that we're used to. His voice is colder, his posture is more rigid, there's no quip, there's no irony. He just completely disappears into the role, and that's the difference. At the end of the day, Jack Black, Dwayne Johnson, and Ryan Reynolds are all incredibly entertaining. They've carved out wildly successful careers by mastering their own persona and delivering exactly what audiences expect. And especially in Hollywood, that's no small achievement. But acting, real acting, is about transformation, not repetition. It's about stepping into someone else's skin, not just wearing your own with a different costume. When we compare them to artists like Hugh Jackman, Robert Downey Jr., Robin Williams, the contrast becomes clear. Those actors reshape themselves physically and emotionally. They don't just play characters, they become them. So are Jack Black, The Rock, and Ryan Reynolds actually actors? Well, technically yes, but when it comes to the art and craft of acting, the kind that makes you forget the face behind the character, they're more performers than chameleons, and there's a big difference between putting on—
I think that's a good comparison. Comparing it to performances rather than acting. Acting is you become them, just like you said. Performances is like a bit. You know, if it's like a clickable moment. You know, you do it because there's interesting moments, because you're performing something. But if you're actually acting in it, there's dedication outside of just what you're making, And then from there, it becomes a better story because then you feel like those actors actually are those characters. You know, it all seeps together into this one beautiful piece of cinema. But if you're just putting on a performance, it's like an extended bit. You know, they film for 10 minutes and you put on the show and then they say cut and then you're a different person. You know, acting, a lot of time, true acting, and I'm not downplaying, you know, these people, but true acting, I mean, hell, you're gonna still be a little bit of that person coming off of when they say cut.
On a show and disappearing into a role. One entertains and the other transforms. And that's the blunt truth of it.
What a great video. W video. Well, that is going to do it for this stream. I want to do more of these. I can't say that they'll be very consistent. But I definitely want to do more. I like just yapping. It's a lot of fun. And I enjoy it. And it's content that I would watch, which is important to me. I want to create content that I would watch on my own time. So I am happy to say that this would be content that I create on my own time. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, those of you that tuned in. I'll probably be slowly editing this over the next month, getting them out, getting each reaction out. Well, we'll see. But